Reading for final edit. Sarah in the Woods, take 2. Sarah, is there really nothing I can do to make it work between us? No, but you can make me feel better. Make your announcement today. Post the video of your proposal on your social media accounts. On all of your social media accounts. I'm sure you've already bought the rings. She slid a large diamond ring from her left hand and pried off a small piece of plastic. It's not my size. She smiled and placed the ring on the table in front of Jacob. Well, I had gone ring shopping with. Yes, I'm sure you did. Now there's nothing between us besides being acquaintances at this point. We may become family, but I will not be your wife. Jacob's apostrophe S. Face crumpled. I'm really sorry. Yes, you've said that before. If you're truly sorry, you will marry the girl you actually care about and not harm anyone else. But I didn't mean to. She raised an eyebrow at him, and he fell silent. You really lost the baby? Yes. Thank goodness, or that would have been an extra complication between us. She quickly met Grandpa Joe's eyes at the sound of him stifling a sob. She stood. Well, I think that it's clear enough. Please give me Jack's contact information. I will call him this afternoon, and I will make my introductions. I'm going to make that a period. Jacob swiveled in his chair, watching her as she left the room, shutting the door behind her. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Sarah collapsed on the wall outside the study door. She had escaped a horrible fate, and she would be damned as if she would be forced into another. She would be damned if she would be forced. Damned, not as, but if. Reread. Sarah collapsed on the wall outside the study door. She had escaped a horrible fate, and she would be damned as she would be forced into another. Jack would have 0 chances to fail her before she left. There would be others who would be more capable of caring, and she would never settle or forgive again. Boom, boom, boom. Doodly, doodly. She quickly texted Luca to make sure he was available and then ran upstairs. Her room was not the way she'd left it. Her jewelry was scattered on the bed. She could buy other things. It really didn't matter. I'm going to do, because the computer doesn't like it. She could buy other things. It really did not matter. She could simply walk away and leave everything behind, but she needed her computer. She tossed the gifts she had received into the back of the closet. They were not to her taste, and she suspected who picked them out, or who he thought of when he purchased them. Sarah again breathed out deep and long, trying to let go of the anger before catching one of the girls sweeping the hall for assistance with packing and carrying down her luggage. Not that there was a lot of it, but she was still far too weak, and her right hand was still useless. She stayed in her scrubs, but put on her own shoes. She owed Joseph a pair. He had the smallest feet of the 2 men. The smaller feet. Smaller, not smallest, small E-R. He had the smaller feet of the 2 men, and his shoes were the ones she had clunked around in for the last few days. The sound of her suitcase hitting each of the depressed grout lines brought the old man and Jacob out of his study. I'd not thought you'd leave so soon. I'm not one to linger. Are you going to go to Jack directly? No, I'm going to a hotel. I need some time and I don't feel comfortable. I have a villa you could stay at. I know, but it's all right. She took the old man's hand and patted it. I just need not to be the lady of the house right now. I just want to be an anonymous customer in a hotel, get some room service and watch some bad TV. She gave him half a smile and patted his hand again. The old man shook his head. After losing his wife, he could have used that time too. The old man took a card out of his wallet and tried to press it into her hand. It's on me. It's on the family. She pushed it back into his hand. We have already discussed this. You've already given me a card, and I'm happy to spend your money. She smiled at him. And the old man's shoulders relaxed, and he patted her hand back. She realized finally that Jacob was watching her from the side. He had an odd look on his face, and she did not recognize the emotion expressed. She had no category for it, but she was glad to be getting away from him and the neglect. G-E-T. G-E-T. Oh, T2 T's. She was glad to be getting away from him and his neglect. I'll reread. She had no category for it, but she was glad to be getting away from him and his neglect. Jacob, the least you could do is help her with her luggage. Jacob's apostrophe S. It's like something's wrong. Jacob's smile did not reach his eyes as he awkwardly took the case from Sarah's good hand. The housekeeper opened the front door wide, and in the bright afternoon sun, a giant leaned against an old blue truck, its scars well earned. "Who's that man?" Jacob asked with a strange bite of anger and a tightening in his gut. "My driver and savior." The old man went forward to shake his hand, but Jacob held back. Sarah tore the case from his hand and marched forward so she could do the introductions. The housekeeper was busy stacking luggage by the truck. "I want to thank you for saving our Sarah. I'd like to give you a reward." "I've already given him his reward." "I did not save her money." Oh, should be a 4 in there. I've read that line and been like, something's weird. "I did not save her for money. I did it because I'm human and I couldn't leave another one of my kind struggling in the mud in the middle of the night, alone in the woods. She's fierce but no match for a bear." The old man patted the giant on his arm. "She is that. Well, I still would like to have you for dinner. It's the least I could do." "I'd like to have you for dinner. I'd like to treat you, have you for..." It's fine, I'm going to leave it alone. "Well, I still like to have you for dinner. It's the least I could do." Could do, not can do. Could, C-O-U-L-D. That's what I keep saying. Gotta write it if I say it. It's the least I could do. "A good meal I'll take." Luca made a point of starting to load her bags in the back of his truck, then opened the door for her. He lifted her up by the waist and set her inside the cab, knowing her leg was still tender and he had to do the same for her in the morning. But there was a cough behind them. "What kind of reward did she give you?" The nasty snarl of Jacob and the intonation in his voice surprised Sarah. Was he jealous or going to suggest something untoward between the giant and herself? "She gave me a job. She's a lot less trouble than driving wood." "Doodly-doo, doodly-doo." "Are you sure you don't want to go back to the clinic? They would keep you. I'm sure they don't have the room to do what I need to get done this afternoon. But I do want your help, and I will pay you." "That's a given." "Doodly-doo, doodly-doo." Sarah had ordered 10 lavender bouquets to be sent to her room before she arrived. So on opening the door, she was struck with the sweet, clean scent, pushing out the bad thoughts and unhappy memories. Sarah went to the glass doors that led out to the balcony. She gripped the molding tightly and pushed with her foot on the dusty floor, making sure it was sound before stepping out, but then quickly returned to the safety of indoors. Once you'd had a balcony collapse under you, it changes one's relationship forever. Her phone vibrated, but recognizing her mother's number. She let it, not so. Her phone vibrated, but she recognized her mother's number, Oh no, there does need to be a so there. Okay, reread. Her phone vibrated, but recognizing her mother's number, she let it go to message. She would call her back soon. Luca had been sent on his missions and should be ours, so Sarah took a long hot shower and changed into something more comfortable, a flannel nightgown and a towel spread over her shoulders. Best rip off the Band-Aid quickly. I think it needs a hyphen. Something. I don't know. Let me do this. Let me see what their other suggestions were. It's a proper name, but it's not. But it's not meant as a proper name. I'm not referring to the actual product. It's like Kleenex now is just a box of tissues, but it's a euphemism for a box of tissues, just like the John is for a toilet. Best rip off the Band-Aid quickly. She pulled a chair over in front of the open door, rested her heels outside in the sun, letting the warmth of the afternoon breeze ruffle her hair, then dialed her mother. Yes, and how are you? Yes, I'm fine. No, I'm fine, Mother. No, I'm really okay, Mom. The doctor said I'm fine and there's no problem for the future. Now, no, well, Grandpa Joe may not have explained it clearly enough. I'm not going to meet another one of... enough. Mom? I'm going to meet one of the men in the family and see if that relationship will work. I'm afraid Jacob already had someone he loved. Yes, I know. Yes, I know he's older and I don't care. It's not the age of the body, it's the soul I care about. Mom, it's over, and I don't care how kind Jacob was to you. He was not to me. Yes, I know. Yes. I'm not burning any bridges. I'm simply trying to build a new one. I'm afraid I have someone at the door, so I'm going to go now and tell Nana that I love her. Good night. I need that quote mark. Oh, psh. Sarah flung her arms back, resting her head on the chair. Her head on the chair and letting the phone drop to the floor. There was no one at the door, but she simply could not listen to her mother espousing Jacob's virtue and his qualities one more time. She was too worried about her mother was too worried about appearances and the large payout they were going to receive from the contracts were to be signed on their wedding day. There was no point in contacting her father. He would not worry. Period. He had long ago told her, that's too many hyphens in there. He had long ago told her she was quite sufficiently independent and no longer needed his guidance. In truth, he was focused on his other children, the ones born outside of his marriage. Tears began to stream down her sides of her face. Oh, here, enter. Tears began to stream down the sides of her face, knowing that's what she was facing. No matter the man from the family she married, all men were the same. No, Grandpa Joe was supposed to not be, from all accounts. all accounts, he was faithful, and that's why that he had no illegitimate children. The only son, only one, oh, and only one son. Here, okay, I think, I don't know what I had before. I don't even know. I could undo children. And he had no illegitimate children, and only one son that had died in a horrible car wreck. Period. No, Grandpa Joe was supposed to not be. For all accounts, he was faithful and had no illegitimate children, and only one son that had died in a horrible car wreck. That is why Jacob was so precious to him. That is why Jacob was so precious to him. Well, he could have his precious Jacob. There was a light knock at the door. She had ordered nothing, and in theory, Luca was the only one who knew where she checked in. There was a light knock. Precious Jacob. Okay, new paragraph. There was a light knock at the door. She had ordered nothing, and in theory, Luca was the only one who knew where she checked in. She cautiously looked through the peephole. For the people, but saw no one. Yes. Ma'am, your order's here. I ordered nothing. Are you Miss Smith? Who sent it? Ma'am, I don't. Look at the label and tell me who sent it. It's food, ma'am. You were sent food from the hotel's restaurant. Well, somebody must have ordered it. There should be a receipt. Ordered it, comma, period. There must be a receipt. I did not. Madam, will you please stand where I can see your face? A short man with an average build stepped into oh, finally, here. That's it. I have two different thoughts going there. A short man with an average build finally came into the pinhole's view. There, much better. Borp. And this is why we read these things over, because we don't realize what we've done. Yes, thank you. Did you say who was on the receipt? It's a Mr. Jack McCarthy. Really? She had yet to call him. Thank you. She scrubbed her tongue over her teeth and quickly dashed across the room and grabbed a flower vase. It was the heaviest thing she could identify and held it above her head and opened the door slowly. Opening. Head, comma. Opening the door slowly. The man was just as he had appeared, comma. A head shorter than her, but with kind eyes and a pleasant smile. She instructed the man to leave the tray on the table and gave him table and leave, giving him a large tip. He bowed deeply to her. He bowed deeply to her, and she shut and locked the door and touched nothing on the tray. He bowed deeply to her, and she shut and locked the door and touched nothing on the tray. He bowed deeply to her. Comma. She shut and locked the door. Comma. And touched nothing on the tray. She perched in her chair in the sun and retrieved the number Grandpa Joe texted her earlier in the day. She took 5 cleansing breaths and then dialed the number. Placing number, comma, P-L-A-C-I, placing the phone on a small table next to her and put it on speaker. Speak. This is Sarah Montague. I was given, G-I-V-E-N, given your number by Grandpa Joe. Yes. Are you aware of who I am? No. Then I'll introduce you. I was engaged to Jacob. Was engaged? Yes, I have forced his marriage to that Lisa. Oh, you forced a marriage? That was part of the agreement to vent my anger. Jack's full attention was now on his phone and the rather dry voice of a woman who had forced the marriage of 2 other people. Now she was interesting. Are you calling me because... And you're calling me because you are an unmarried... You are... Get rid of verb. You are an unmarried male in the family. I still have an engagement contract to fulfill with your family. I'm going to say this. They're called the... That's it. I still have a married male in the family. I still have an engagement contract to fulfill with the Mortison. Oh no. Well, that's why I'm calling you. Do you currently have a significant other? No. Do you have anyone that you like and cannot let go without seeing every day? No. Well, there's Gerald. Who is Gerald? My fish. All right, then I can accept your love of a fish. Of the fish. All right. Comma. Then I can accept your love of the fish. It's not love, but he is dependent on me. Yes, I understand. He's in a tank and requires you to feed him every day. Well, yes, and entertain him. All right, great. So you have no romantic entanglements? No, quite no. When was the last time you slept with a woman? That is a bit personal. Are you going to tell me the last time you slept with a man? The first and last time was with Jacob 2 months ago, and he got me pregnant. I have subsequently lost a child. Oh, well. Jack had not expected her to be so blunt. Yes, it was quite Jacob's fault. Anyways, I'm fine. I have been assured by the doctors there's no lasting effects, and I'm perfectly fertile and capable of giving birth. Which I know is part of the agreement. Well, I hadn't. I know you are older and he could hear her swallowing on the other end of the line. You may have other interests that would not lead towards a marriage to a woman. And I would like you to be honest with me. If you have no intention of ever marrying or having children or being faithful, if you have no intention of ever marrying, comma, or having children, comma, or being faithful, comma, I would like Oh, here. It needs ... I would like to clear it with Grandpa Joe. I will not disclose your reasons. I will simply say it's impossible between us, and it's about my feelings between us, comma. And it's about my feelings. No. And we will let it end end there. And I will promise not to break the business end of the contract. Come on. But I will not force myself into a marriage. And I will let it end there. Period. I promise I will not break the business. I will not break the business end of the contract, but I will not force myself into a marriage. And how long were you with Jacob? It's been a bit over a year. I've had a chance for 2 birthdays with him. Oh, okay. And you're certain? There's absolutely no way I would have another dealing with Jacob. I've actually left the old house. The old Lynn house. And I'm staying in a hotel. The reason I'm calling you is that old Lynn house. I'm staying in a hotel. The reason I'm calling you at this time is because I was sent a dinner in your name. Under your name. It's because I was sent a dinner under your name. I was unaware of your existence. I'm sorry that was not for me. Neither are the roses on the plate. No, let me make a quick phone call. I will call you right back, I promise. This is a good number. Yes. Sarah pulled a flask out of her backpack and drank greedily of the brown liquid. It was bracing and exactly what needed. And exactly what she needed, only to be used in cases of emergency. Oh, let me do this. And today was certainly that case. Oh no. Only to be used in cases of emergency, and today was certainly a case. She settled herself back in her chair and started to drift off in the sunlight when the phone rang again. She again struck the speaker. You cannot break off this contract. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, was her father. The contract will not be broken, but the marriage is over. Oh, the contract will not be broken, but the marriage is. You cannot be serious. You cannot be serious. You know very well how these marriages... Oh, very well, that's how these marriages are. That's how your marriage is, Father. It's... Father. That's how your marriage is. I'm going to put exclamation point. That's how your marriage is. Father, it's not the sort of thing I would wish on myself. You would wish that on me? I'm happy. Yes, well, you're the man, aren't you? She hung up the phone and blocked his number. She was not going to give him any time and certainly did not hear any further. She was not going to give him any time. Period. She certainly did not need to hear. She certainly did not need to hear any further on his feelings on the subject. Need to hear further on his fur. She certainly did not need to hear further on his feelings on the subject. Okay, let me reread this. I don't like it. She was not going to give him any time. She certainly did not need to hear further about his feelings. Oh, about, that's the word. About. She certainly did not need to hear further about his feelings on the subject. The phone rang again. The phone rang immediately again. It was an unknown number. What you do with your illegitimate children is up to you. But I will not have them. I'm sorry? She crumpled inside, her eyes closing. No, I'm sorry, Jack. May I call you Jack? Yes. My father just informed me I was not allowed to break the contract, and he also informed me that I was being irrational and that, well, that's just how marriages were, and he was happy. But I am unaccepting of that as my fate. What do you mean? I'm sorry. I'll be clear then. My father and mother were in a business marriage. Are in a business marriage. I'm sorry, I'll be clear then. My father and mother are in a business marriage, much like we would be. My father and mother are in a business marriage, comma, much like we would be in, comma. However, I refuse to have the sort of marriage they do. My father has another family and spends his time there, and is quite open about it with my mother. Unfortunately, my mother has accepted her fate and lack of love. My father says he's happy, and of course he is, and he expects me to be happy in that sort of marriage. Oh, I see. So that's why I'm being as open and honest with you as possible. Oh, that's why I'm being as open and honest with you as I possibly can be. And if you have any other interests that would keep you from having a relationship like Grandpa Joe had with Grandma. Oh, I suppose he'd be your uncle, wouldn't he? Your uncle had with your aunt. Then please don't waste my time. I have no entanglements of any kind. None, ever. I had loved someone once, and this is very personal. Well, if this goes well, will be very personal, so share. He was quite taken aback by her bluntness again. Well, she married someone else, I see, and if she divorced that person... Well, she married someone else and they had a few children. No, they had a child. No, they had a few children. But and they had a few children, comma, but she and he both passed away. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. So let me reread this. I see. And if she divorced that person, well, she's married to. She married someone else, and they had a few children, but she and he both passed away. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Yes, I was too. And I can understand your concern. So you have held a torch for her all this time. I've just never met anyone else that I held my interest. Well, I see. Well, oh, I'm sorry. I need to tell you those dishes were purchased by Grandpa Joe in my name. Good. Thank you. Then I'll eat them. Why wouldn't you have eaten them? I don't eat food ordered by strangers. So if I had ordered them, you wouldn't have eaten them? I mean, unknown origin. I would not eat it. Oh, I will not eat it. I mean of unknown... I'm going to put an of in there. I mean of unknown origin. I will not eat it. Oh, I'm not young. I'm 26 this year. I'm 26 a week ago. She swallowed hard at the bitter memory of the day. And I have been in more... That doesn't even make sense. I've been here. Swallowed hard the been memory of the day, and I don't drink when I'm out, even at business meetings, especially at business meetings. If they feel that I'm not showing them enough, enough respect because I'm not drinking, then I don't need to do business with them. I'm going to reread this whole thing. I'm not young. I'm 26 this year. I'm 26 a week ago. She swallowed hard the bitter memory of the day. And I don't drink when I'm out, even at business meetings, especially at business meetings. If they feel that I'm not showing them enough respect because I'm not drinking, then I don't need to do business with them. But no, it's a foolish ritual, and as a woman it puts me in great danger. Yes, of course. So now that you know I'm not entangled. Oh, here, this is her. So now that I know you're not, that's what I know you are not. I had it in the wrong order for some reason. So now that I know you are not entangled and you are not, Chelsea. Now that you know I'm not entangled and you're not entangled, are you willing to meet me? I don't know if I like that. So now that you know I'm not entangled and you're not entangled, are you willing to meet me? Yes, Grandpa Joe apprised me of the situation, and I don't think John would be an appropriate match to anyone I see. I'm willing to meet you. Unfortunately, I have a few meetings I have to attend in person. It is. Well, it's the first time I'm meeting with these people. It's the first time I'm meeting with these people, and I need to leave. And I need to leave a good impression. Would you mind if I came to you? Perhaps I could help you with your negotiations. I'd like to meet you, but that is fine. We don't have to mix business and pleasure. She heard him cough on the other end of the blind. Yes, well, you know they have this lovely thing called a video call. Do you want to see my face? I would love to. But I do have a meeting I'm supposed to be at in a half an hour, and I have 40 minutes dry. I would love to, but I do have a meeting. At period. I'm supposed to be at it in a half an hour, and I'm supposed to be at it in half an hour, and I have, I'm supposed to put a comma there, and I have 40-minute drive, I still have a 40-minute drive. I'm afraid I'm running a bit late, and it's making me anxious. I'm sorry to disturb it. 40-minute drive. I'm afraid I'm running a bit late, and it's making me anxious. I'm sorry to have disturbed you. No, truly it's fine. I just need to take care of some business. But you're okay. Safe where you are. I am. I am fine, thank you. And I will enjoy the meal. Please call me when you're free. Send me your location and I will arrange my trip. This is her, all her. No, I can take care of that for you. It was nice speaking with you. And you. Well, that could have been more awkward, but she was not going to have the same problems again. The food had gotten a bit cold, but the steak was still delicious. Grandpa Joe knew her taste well, and apparently the hotel's restaurant was quite excellent. She wound her hair on top of her head and took another hot shower and curled up in bed, allowing herself to sleep until he called her back. Until Jack called her back. Now he's fine. Right now. There was nothing more. Right now, there's nothing more important than settling who would sleep next to her in the future. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. The video call had not happened, comma. But she had... Ow. Had taken her time and done research on the man. He was a bit older, and he had a rather severe hairline, but it seemed dark and thick, and in most of the pictures he wore it a bit long on top and clean around the edges. The only time he appeared in the photos was in a three-piece suit. Oh, the only time he appeared in the photos not in a three-piece suit was in a tennis outfit, and his knees were strong and the muscles in his thighs were well defined. Oh, here. The only time he appeared in photos. It's an awkward sentence I've constructed. I've got to deconstruct it or just go with it. The only time he appeared in photos was in a three-piece suit. Except, and I can get rid of that. Put a was here. The only time he appeared... Oh. He only once appeared... the only time he appeared in photos... He only appeared... No. Control Z. The only time he appeared in the photos, comma, not in a three-piece suit, comma, was in a tennis outfit, comma, or period. His knees were strong and the muscles in his thighs were well defined, comma, under a light scattering of hair. But that article had been from 10 years earlier. T-E-N. And I'm going to say this. Oops. Comma, but. Okay. His knees were strong and the muscles in his thighs were well defined under a light scattering. Oh, it does not need a comma there. His knees were strong, comma, and the muscles in his thighs were well defined under a light scattering of hair, but the article had been from 10 years earlier. There. She received an electronic itinerary and her ticket, one way to Rome, no, to Italy. I'm going to say Italy. To Italy. She had understood he was in Germany, but she was not going to argue. She informed her mother through text, did not unblock her father, and called Auntie May. Period. She let them know she was leaving the country and was unsure when she would be back. The flight was in 2 hours and she had just enough time. Texting Luca, hoping he had succeeded in his mission. Oh, here. Period, comma, texting. She had just enough time. Texting Luca, hoping he had success in his mission. Oh, he had succeeded in his mission. There we go. The flight was in 2 hours and she had just enough time. Texting Luca, comma, hoping he had succeeded in his mission. She gathered each bouquet of lavender and beat them in one of her open trunks, knocking the delicate flowers loose before changing into something more comfortable, a three-piece suit with pencil skirt. But for her favored tennies, as her toes still ached from the cold. Doodly-doo. Luke lifted her into his cab again. Are you really leaving so soon? Yes, of course. I must get this marriage settled. Rich people do have strange ways. I admit it's not an ideal situation. My mother is certainly an unhappy participant in this sort of marriage. As soon as I figure out that he is unworthy of me and my time, I will be able to move on and get back to doing business. So you don't really want to get married? I would like to get married and have children, but I want a loving, faithful husband. I refuse to be in my mother's situation. I would truly rather never marry than live like that. I would truly rather never marry than live that life. Well, when you get back to town, I'll be happy to be your driver again. You really are going to travel with only a backpack and one bag? Yes, and you get the job of shipping off the rest of the things in my room. In the room. I clearly marked the pile of for donation. I will just buy things if I need them. Good to be rich. Well, I thank you for caring. I thank you for caring. I thank you for taking care of everything else. It's a real sentence. I just need to read it. Good to be rich. Well, thank you for taking care of everything else. I will be sure to send you pictures. Oh, I don't know about that. It'll make me jealous. I've always wanted to travel. I wanted to be a photojournalist when I was a kid. I could book you a ticket now. You could be my muscle. His brows knit together and he glanced at her. You think that's all I'm good for? No, but it's a reasonable explanation for you to be tagging along. Well, your offer is tempting, but I can't leave the country. Why, do you have a criminal record? No, I don't have a passport. Look at getting that fixed. If I marry the man, you're invited too. Oh, and your two friends are too. You're invited. Oh, here. Oh, and your two friends are too. Even if I don't marry, I'll make your wish come true and show you some of my favorite places. All right, I will take you up on your offer. Very good. She looked out the dirty window and smiled. This time the sun was disappearing. And the rays were reaching for the clouds. This time the sun was disappearing and the rays were reaching for the clouds. Here, I'm going to do this and put a comma because I want it to be all that same thought. This time the sun was disappearing and the rays were reaching for the clouds. She was safe and someone had her back. Luca revved his engine, keeping it from stalling, while Sarah took a last look at his square, handsome face in the pink light of the evening. Luca revved his engine, keeping it from stalling, while Sarah took a last look at his square, handsome face in the pink light of the evening. Good luck on your husband hunt. Thank you, driver of wood. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. As she landed in the outskirts of Rome, the sun was just beginning to warm the sky. There seemed to be no lack of travelers in this small airport. She was glad she'd chosen to be a minimalist with her luggage. She wandered around a bit outside. Rows of taxis came and went. She still didn't have a ride. She asked a man to borrow a phone. She was surprised to hear a woman's voice on the other end. Yes, can I help you? Can you let Jack know that I have arrived at the airport and am waiting? And you are? Sarah Montague. Yes, ma'am. I'll let him know as soon as he's out of the shower. This did not bode well. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Sarah never took more than 10 minutes in the shower, even washing her hair. So at 15 minutes... Oh, at the 15 minute... Oh, after. It should be after. A-F-T-E-R. So after 15 minutes, she borrowed another phone. Someone answered, but then promptly hung up. Strike one. She hailed a taxi and asked him to take her. Oh, I can make that a new paragraph. Enter. She hailed a taxi and asked him to take her to his favorite restaurant in the city. She was hungry and she would eat now, then decide where she would spend the night. The cab driver assured her that this was authentic and delicious. It did smell good, and the staff seemed welcoming enough, and the fact they spoke little English made her feel even better about the food. They had a gooey cake for dessert, and she was sipping on her wine, enjoying the murmurs of the patrons around her. Oh. They had a gooey cake for dessert, and she was sipping on her wine and enjoying the murmurs of the patrons around her when she borrowed a phone. Oh, when she borrowed a phone, as hers was still not working. She tried his number again and got the same woman. Again, and got the same woman. Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot to tell him. Is he available to speak now? No, I'm sorry, but I will remember to give him the message this time. Strike two. I want to get rid of this, because she doesn't say it out loud. She's thinking it. So I'm going to put it in little quotes. Boom. Next, comma. Oh, and that goes here. That's how to do this. Space. Get rid of this. Because that's strike two. That the woman said that. Next she called Grandpa Lou. Lou. No. There's no Grandpa Lou. This is Grandpa Joe. Who's Grandpa Lou? Yeah. Next, she called Grandpa Joe. He'd made her promise to keep him updated, and she did have something to report to him. She gave the elder another 100 and took a deep breath and dialed the old man's number. She gave the elder $100, took a deep breath, and dialed the old man's number. She had to do it twice before he picked up. It's Sarah. I didn't recognize the number, and I'm so sorry, my dear. I was asleep, my dear, As well you should be. So how's Jack? No idea. What do you mean? My phone's not working, so I've had to borrow one. That's why the strange number. I'll buy a new one in the morning. But what do you mean about Jack? I've called his number 3 times, and a woman has answered twice. He has been in the shower or not available. That's not like him. Also, no one met me at the airport. I'm currently at a restaurant, and I'm currently at a restaurant, and have had a delightful meal, and we'll figure out where I'm sleeping in a moment. Oh, this is ridiculous. I can't believe Jack would do something like this. Can I call you back at this number? Sure, I'll give the woman another $100. I promise I'll call you right back. She poured herself another glass of wine and waited. The old woman's phone vibrated, and it wasn't the old man's voice, but a rather stiff one. He identified himself as Jack. So you did make it to Rome? I landed in Italy hours ago. Sarah knew she was not in Rome proper. She had looked at a map, but a small suburb to the east of it. Why didn't you go with the driver? I saw no driver. He's still at the airport waiting for you. I've been in meetings all afternoon, and I could only assume the flight had been delayed when you hadn't shown up for dinner. Are you at least safe? Half a point up. Yes, I've had quite a delightful meal. I'm going to book a hotel nearby and have a good night's sleep. No, give me your location and I'll send the driver to you. It's okay. I wouldn't want to interrupt your evening. My what? You are my evening. Uncle Joe interrupted my meeting. Well, don't worry about me. Now that you know I'm safe, don't worry. Here, I'm going to put period. Now, don't worry about me. Now that you know I'm safe, you can continue your meeting. No, really, that won't do. I booked you in the room next door. Comma. And I had quite the evening planned. Well, I believe you have someone else that can fill in the spot. Fill in. Oh, it's 2 words. Fill in the spot. So I will remain here where I am. Enjoy your evening with your friend. I don't have a friend. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. Uncle Joe said a woman answered the phone. I only have Secretary Price. She arranged your itinerary and dinner. She's far too sensible. There must be some misunderstanding. Jack, you already have 2 strikes against you, and you're verging on a 3rd. Strike, what have I done wrong? I told you. You told me. You told. Ah, that's what's wrong. You told me. You told me. You told me you had no romantic entanglement. That's what's wrong. It's okay. Strike. What have I done wrong? You told me you had no romantic entanglements. But a woman answered the phone and said you were in the shower when you should be. Oh. But a woman answered the phone and said you were in the shower when you should have been at the airport, or at least had a driver for me. Sorry, humans out there. The children. 1, I've not been in the shower, and 2, I don't have a driver for you. I do have it. Oh, I'm going to reread this. Strike. What have I done wrong? You told me you had no romantic entanglements, but a woman answered the phone. Period. She said you were in the shower when you should have been at the airport, or at least had a driver for me. 1, I've not been in the shower, and 2, I do have a driver for you. And the 2nd time I called you, I was hung up on directly. The 3rd call, you were too busy. She apologized and said she'd forgotten to tell you, but promised to make sure to tell you this time. She what? No, that's not like her. I don't understand. Now please tell me your location and I'll come for you. No, I'm fine. My phone is broken. At least it's not allowing phone calls. I am going to shop in the morning to get it figured out. Oh, I am going to go to oh, yeah. No, I'm going to a shop. That's it. Get rid of all that extra junk. I'm going to a shop in the morning to get it figured out. I'm going to a shop in the morning to get it figured out. Much better. Aha. That should give me enough time to cool down, and I will reconsider giving you my location. My location. That should give me enough time to cool down, and I will consider giving you my location. No, I am. Just tell me where you are. I have no way to contact you. I'm fine. I will be fine. I had traveled alone before, and I was much younger at the time. She examined her taped fingers and was sorry that Luca had not had his passport. She could have shown him the Mediterranean. They could have gone diving in the ruins off Sicily, eating goat cheese under the boughs of an ancient olive tree. Jack's voice pulled her attention back. I really am sorry. I don't know what's happened. Could you at least stay by this number? No, I really couldn't. I'm simply borrowing a phone. I believe the woman would like to go home. Sarah, please let me come for you. Maybe tomorrow. Good night, Jack. She decisively hung up the phone, thanked the woman, and gave her another $100. Sarah felt she had delayed the woman's family long enough. Now she was free to do, well, anything she wanted. First, she would book a hotel room and get a good night's sleep. Between her poor Italian and the waitress's poor English, Sarah told her story to the girl. Poor English, Sarah, between her poor Italian and the waitress's poor English, Sarah told her story to the girl. Her name was Lulu, and she tried to make Sarah feel better and offered her a room in their family house if she could just wait until she was off for the evening. As Sarah had nothing better to do, she sat and poured herself another glass of wine. The girl lived at home, and two of the other people, the girl lived at home with two of the other people, an older man and woman who worked in the back and seemed to be related to her. Period. No, it needs a comma because I know it's a big long sentence and it's very complicated, but it's because it's all the same thought. The girl lived at home with two of the other people, an older man and an older woman who worked in the back and seemed to be related to her, comma, as they appeared around the full table of joyful people. It was a feast from the restaurant, they explained. It was a feast from the restaurant. I'm going to put a period. No, it's fine the way it is. It was a feast in the restaurant. They explained they never served leftovers, and they never served leftovers. And somehow these dishes tasted even better. Okay. It was a feast in the restaurant. They explained they never served leftovers, and somehow these dishes tasted even better. The room they offered her was small, warm, and smelled delightful. She washed up and managed to change into her flannel nightgown before collapsing under the blankets. Sleep took her quickly. Unlike during her time at Grandpa Joe's house, she had no disturbing dreams and only slept deeply. A powerful scent of baking bread woke her in the morning, the light spilling on the floor before her bed. She stretched and dressed. I'm going to put a period here. Period. The light spilling on the floor before her bed. Warmed her. Warmed her more than W-A-R. Warmed her heart more than the room. Yeah, that's good. Than T-H. Warmed, if I could spell warmed right. Warmed, the light spilling on the floor before her bed. Warmed her. The light spilling on the floor before her bed warmed her heart more than the room. Light spilling on the floor before her bed, warmed her heart more than the room. She stretched and dressed, prepared to leave immediately. When the family insisted, she had breakfast with them. She was not a fool or rude. She was not foolish or rude enough to refuse. Steam rose from the freshly baked bread as she cracked it open. That had been what she'd smelled as she woke. They were truly delightful people, though there was a... And though... Oh, people... I'm going to put this here. People, period. Though there was but a scattering of words that they understood between them. They were, here, comma. Though there was but a scattering of words they understood between them, they suggested beautiful places she could see in the city and along the coast. Lulu promised to show her to a shop where she could get a new phone. Oh, and there, I put an and there. And, oh, comma, and Lulu promised to show her to a shop where she could get a new phone. Sarah had worn the same outfit she'd had on the flight, intending to buy new clothes as she went, but these were her comfortable battle armor. Somehow it didn't matter what she wore, for the girl on her arm skipped and made her feel as if they were in her youth. It was lovely. It was a lovely way to spend the day. The small shop was a little dusty, but well equipped with electronics and Twinkies. The young man identified the problem with her handset. The function that would allow it to work internationally somehow was not working, so he provided her with a burner. After a few minutes of him setting it up for her, she gave the man an extra tip and they were off. The girl had promised her ice cream, well, their version of it. They sat in an old, cold stone wall overlooking most of the city. This was a lovely little place, though she'd been in enough Italian cities to know most of them were much larger and modern than they appeared, only disguised as a small village. Boys often stopped to talk to the girl. Sarah knew they were asking questions about the well-dressed lady next to her. There were often glances and giggles, but they were all polite. Yes, Luca would enjoy this place, though he would tower over most of the occupants. Samson and Joseph would enjoy it too. She would plan a trip for the four of them, and this girl. Yes, that's what she would do. She would have to find out the best time of the year, when the water would not be so cold, but the beaches not so full. All the contracts and promises forgotten, she thought of all the beautiful places she'd been, and how much fun she would have sharing them with her new friends. Sarah made sure the girl had all of her contact information and a few shared pictures before she was put on a train going north, the goal being London. A small flat awaited her, but she would take her time and enjoy the view out the train window, as the landscape changed from grass and olives to cypress and then pine. She finally made a call to Grandpa Joe. "Good afternoon, Grandpa Joe." "Where are you?" Jack is losing his mind. "I'm on a train and I'm going home." "What do you mean you're going home? What home?" "Well, I went to school in London and I still have a flat. I'm headed there now." "Why wouldn't you tell Jack where you were? Didn't he explain the woman?" Yes, he said he said she was his secretary and very sensible, so it must have been a misunderstanding." "Sarah, why didn't you tell me where you are specifically? Where did you stay last night?" "Jack said none of the hotels had you registered." "I stayed with the family. They were quite delightful and breakfast was delicious. I spent the day with their daughter, seeing the sights of the city and eating ice cream. Now, I'm on a train heading north." "Sarah, sometimes you're too decisive. I suppose that's why you're so good." "I'll call and let Jack know you're okay. Can I get hold of you at this number?" "Yes, it's my new phone." "And yes, you can give him my number. I'm simply going to enjoy my trip back home and watch the beautiful scenery pass by. Then I'll figure out what I'm doing next, once I've had a good shower." Jack really isn't that sort. Maybe I was too quick to try to jump into the next relationship. Normally I pick up and set down projects. I don't linger. I guess this is a bit different. "Yes, Sarah, you should take some time to let yourself heal. Maybe when your fingers are better, that would be a good time to try and reconnect. Thank you, Grandpa Joe. I think you have the right idea. I will call you when I arrive. It really is beautiful outside my window. The honey-colored grasses stretch endlessly from the edge of the track. They seem to reach the base of the blue mountains in the distance. She could imagine running a horse at full speed across the grass, unencumbered by fences and rules, just the wind in her hair and the ghosts at their backs, the ghosts at their backs. Grandpa Joe, I might take some time on my way back. I'll let you know. I'll send you some pictures. Good, I think that's very good, and don't worry about any of the projects we were working on. You've done well on them. There's nothing more than small adjustments and signing things. I'll take care of that. You just enjoy yourself. Let your mind settle. Be good, Sarah, and be safe. I'll check in with you later. Is that okay? Yes, Grandpa Joe. You can call me anytime. It really is lovely here. Good night, Grandpa Joe. She slid her phone into her breast pocket and rested her head on the glass, enjoying the bumpity-bump and the endless fields of gold. Doodly-doo. A very tall man had settled in next to her and woke her with his movements. All she could see out of the window was her own reflection in the pitch of night. Sorry to have disturbed your sleep. Do you need a blanket? She did not look at the man, but was polite. No, thank you, I'm fine. She rose up a bit and glanced around. There were many other seats. He could have left space between them. He was that sort. She hugged her backpack tighter in her lap and She hugged her backpack tighter in her lap and chose to pretend to sleep some more. He spoke English well, with no hint of accent. There was no point in striking up a conversation. Sleeping more. Enter. He spoke English well, with no hint of accent. But there was no point. But. I'm going to put a big but there. But. There. But there was no point in striking up a conversation with someone who liked to invade her space. Best not to give him any provocation or hope that she might be interested in return. His long legs seemed uncomfortable in the coach seats. She noted the fine cloth of his pants, but he was still far too invasive. Proper etiquette was to leave space when space was available. The only problem now was that she was in need of the facilities. Comma. There needs to be a commas in there somewhere. The only problem now was that she needed other... there's a use in there. It's wrong. That's what's wrong. The only problem now was that she was in need of the facilities. The only problem now was that she was in need. Oh, I'm gonna get rid of was that. It's too many was's. The only problem now, she was in need of the facilities, and his long legs were blocking her way. Do you mind? I need to stretch my legs. He said nothing and tried to pull his knees in, but then gave up and stood allowing her to pass him. She would have taken another seat, but she liked the view from her window. Upon her return, she was startled as she finally made eye contact with the long-legged annoyance. The longer, thick black locks, I'm going to say long. I don't know why longer was there. The long, thick black locks and severe hairline were just like in the hundreds of pictures she'd seen. I'm going to not say pictures, photos. 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 She had seen. She was sure the man before her was Jack, her potential Jack. He stood to let her in, but she chose to sit across from him in the empty middle row of chairs. He sat again. Oh, he sat after his after a moment of hesitation. Oh, he sat after a moment of hesitation and stretched out his legs into the aisle. I'm sorry that I missed you at the airport. I have dismissed Secretary Price. I was not in the shower, but in a closed door, and that needs to be hyphenated or something, meeting with a few government officials. Phones were not allowed. That's why I sent a driver to pick you up. Unfortunately, he was in the wrong city. Now that made her eyebrows go up in question. Jack continued. The reason I fired Secretary Price was she had made the arrangements, and the claim of the shower. She's been an employee for more than 15 years, but my secretary for 10. I had no idea she was as possessive and had those thoughts. And I need to apologize to you. I have other secretaries, but I figured it being a woman, she would know what a woman wanted. She certainly knew what they did not want, and I apologize for allowing her. He bit his lip. To put a wedge between us so early in our acquaintance. Yes. How did you find me on a moving train? Did you use the latest network of satellites and spyware? Better. I asked the old woman to put a tail on you and report every movement. She spoke no English. That is not a problem. I speak 5 languages, Italian being one of my better ones. Show off. Do you forgive me? You never had an entanglement with that woman. I was unaware of any problem, although I have had a rather quiet decade. What do you mean? I used to suffer many advancements of all sorts. I thought it was just simply because I was getting older and less interesting. Now I suspect I had a bit of help in that area. So I'm to thank her for your chastity. I wouldn't go that far. Are you chaste? Yes, I never gave the Price woman any hope or encouragement. She never took advantage of you. My physical body, no, but apparently I did allow her far too much authority over my schedule and interface with humanity. Interface with humanity? Exclamation point. I doubt you do much of that. She tried to suppress a smile. Yes, well, I don't spend a lot of time socializing with the younger people. Or any people. I do have friends, however most of them are like me and rather busy. We don't see much of each other as we used to. And all but 2 are married. They all are with their own families and lives. Outside of a boardroom, I'm lucky to see them at weddings and christenings these days. One of my friends even has a child who is graduating from college. You can't be that old. He is. I'm 20 years your senior. Does that bother you? No, I'm a little concerned that you have no interest in, that you've not availed yourself of the fairer sex all these years. I have been given plenty of opportunities. I, too, am offered often. I am a woman, and I am quite wealthy. 2 forms of aphrodisiacs. Yes, well, that's the problem. I'm not interested in that sort. Besides, I was deeply in love. It didn't work out, and I had no interest. It did not work out, and I had no interest for quite some time, even being around people, let alone a woman. After she died, I thought I would be able to mourn and move on. But alas, I mourned, but discovered I had no interest in pursuing anyone. So do you have interest? Oh, so do you have no interest in pursuing me as well? No, I have been told of your virtues, and you are certainly not after my money. I believe you are better off than I am, and you certainly have the skill set to make greater fortune from what I understand from Uncle Joe. Sarah shrugged her shoulders and smirked. I'm interested in making a few friends. Oh. I have to turn my heater back on. I'm interested in making a new friend. I do have a few younger people I would count among my friends. They are all bright, successful, and like me, very driven by work. I don't like games. I have little time for people like my brother John. He will forever be a leech into society and my pocketbook. I keep track of him and force him to avoid serious trouble. And exactly how do you do that? He has his keepers. I do this not so much for him, but for the company. Don't need the embarrassment. He has provided a few hideous scandals before I finally made the decision to have him minded. That's why I'm making Jacob marry that girl. If Grandpa Joe tries to marry him off to any other girl, it will only cause scandal. No matter how embarrassing Lisa is as a person, she's far worse as a third party. Really, it's that bad. I really don't want to talk about it too much. I would say that you've made the correction and understand the problem. But picking up my potential husband has twice not worked out for me very well. But being picked up by my potential husband has not worked out for me. But being picked up by my potential husband, has twice not worked out for me very well. I disappointed you. Yes, to be frank. I'm trying to let my disappointment go, but you are still responsible. You should have realized your secretary had malicious intent long ago. Maybe you liked being taken care of like that. Understand, I will not be like her. In fact, I have people that take care of me. I'm far too busy to deal with the details of life when I'm working. Grandpa Joe said he would take over all the projects I've been working on, and I don't plan to do anything else for a bit. She waved her bandaged hand at him. Grandpa suggested once my fingers healed, I could again pursue you. I had planned to sit at that window and watch the world go by on my way back home to London. But I thought your parents lived in the States. I went to school in London. I have a flat and friends, and I know which restaurants I like. I wish you'd let me take you. I don't control who sits on the train. So you won't mind in my company. Don't you have some big meeting you should need to be at, or a shower to take? Funny. That's why I find you interesting. You don't hold back and cut me where it hurts. That would be the children, and I don't know what they're getting into. Shh! Children! Boop boop! What's going on over there? Shh! You're interrupting my story. Funny. That's why I find you interesting. Oh, here. Don't you have some big meeting you need to be at, or a shower to take? Funny. That's why I find you interesting. You don't hold back, and you cut me where it hurts. Few people in this world are willing to speak to me in such a way. Are you a misogynist? No, I'm very rich, and very few people are willing to speak to me clearly, honestly, for fear of offending me. It is true. I have no fear of offending you. I have no investment in you or this relationship. Truly, you don't care. What I care about is having a happy life with a husband who actually wants me in his bed and welcomes me into his heart. She waited a moment, watching the expression flick across his face. But he said nothing, so she continued. You have been very upfront and clear about your lost love, and I find that refreshing. I think I understand that you would find any new relationship difficult to give your heart to. I do think you would be faithful, which is my first and largest requirement. You would not have to fear infidelity from me. I would expect the same. She looked around the carriage. There was she looked around the carriage. There were a few people in this car, but she stood and pressed herself between his knees in the seat, taking her place by the window. Again, taking her place. Again, A-G-A-I-N. There. Let me reread this. She looked around the carriage. There were a few people in this car, but she stood and pressed herself between his knees in the seat, again taking her place by the window. I like that better. Gripping his forearms as if she hoped he would not run away as she spoke. I also want to be frank with you about a few other things. I expect children to be produced in a normal, natural way, and I also want arms wrapped around me every night. Yours. I believe I will enjoy the activity of producing children, and I will, and I will expect that activity regularly. She was watching the expressions flick across his face again. Oh no, never mind. I'm gonna go with it again. She was watching the expressions flick across his face and his eyebrow raising, lowering, and then drawing together at her different phrases. It was actually somewhat amusing. Do you object to the act? No, I do not object. Do you object to sleeping in the same bed as me every night? No, I would certainly be fine with that. Of course, I may need time to get used to the sharing my bed. I'm unsure of my nighttime habits and whether they are compatible with you. My friend says his wife incessantly complains about his snoring. He's even trying surgery. My mother told me I snore, but she assures me that it's a small, light sound. She said it was cute. I'll be the judge of that. His ears turned red. I'm unaware of any other nocturnal habits that I might have. Oh, well, let's see. Oh, well. Let's first see if we get along. Before I tell you that, you said we were going to be open and honest about things. Fine, I prefer to sleep in as nature intended. Jack's brows knit together. Do you mean you prefer to sleep with nothing covering your person? Yes, Jack. Would that be a problem for you? No, I can't imagine that would be. Jack felt his heart starting to race. He realized his nostrils had flared, desperate to get more oxygen. Jack felt his heart starting to race. He realized his nostrils had flared, desperate to get in more oxygen. Do you have an objection to a lot of children? No, why do you ask? Well, if we are successful in our union, I don't plan to use birth control. The doctor told me I was quite well adapted for birth. Oh, I see. He only felt like this after he had a hard run. I see. He only felt like this after a hard run. Something about my flaring hips and ample backside. I see. That was a nice way for the doctor to say that I had a big butt. It is not. It's a nice butt. His ears went red again. Could we not discuss your body in public? I'm afraid I'm a bit overwhelmed with the topic. Yes, of course. But I would like to ask one question. Do you function? She glanced at his belt. Yes, I believe I have no problem. Not my... Oh. Yes, I believe I have no problem. Good. Well, that is all that's important. Not my personality. Half his lip curled up. I was told you had a difficult personality, and the same has been said of me. Again, another reason we may be well matched. Listen, there is really little to discuss. You and I both have compatible backgrounds and fortunes. We simply need to make sure we can live with each other, and enjoy each other's company, as it will be something we do until death, if I understand the oath correctly. Yes, well, that's why I'm here on the train with you. I do need to return. I told you I had a few other meetings. I'm afraid I'm in the middle of negotiations. Now that introductions have been done, you had mentioned you would be willing to, or were interested in coming with me and could help. Why don't we depart at the next stop and make our way back? The next stop would not be a good idea. You don't want to? They don't have an airport in a small village. Oh, I see. That's not a problem. I can arrange transportation from anywhere. Don't show off or spend extra money. Wait at least 2 more stops and we'll be in a major metropolitan area, and we can simply take a plane back. Can you stand an extra hour in my company on the train? Yes, of course. I am just concerned about getting back in time to allow you to get comfortable in your new environment. I do not take long to adapt. It will take longer to get back to wherever we're going. If you rush to get off I do not take long to adapt. It will take longer to get back to wherever we're going if you rush to get off in the rural area. though it might make the trip more interesting. I have a feeling, not the feeling, feeling any path I take with you will be interesting. Sarah released his arm. Good, then it's agreed. We'll stop at the next large city. I believe it should be about 5 a.m. Wake me when we get there. She pulled her backpack tight into her chest, leaned her head on his shoulder, and promptly went to sleep. What a mad woman she was. I feel like it needs to be a ... What a mad woman she was. His Uncle Joe had gone on endlessly about how brilliant she was in the bedroom. Period. She certainly knew how to talk. His body was far more honest than his mind. He was quite under her spell. Not only did her mind lean... Oh. Not only did he... Oh. Not only did he not mind her leaning on him, he also wanted to wrap his arms around her. Not only did he not mind her leaning on him, under her spell. Not only did he not mind her leaning on him, he wanted to wrap his arms around her. There you go. He had experienced her soft purrs for just the briefest of moments when she pressed against his knees, and he wanted more time with them. He turned his head to the side, his nostrils flaring as he took another draught of her scent. It was very lovely, lavender, sweet and clean. She was much younger than him, but last time he'd been in love, he was younger than she is now. She seemed to have awakened him from his stasis. Being faithful to her would not be a problem, and he realized fathering children with her would not be either. Somehow the thought of having children with her did not strike a pain in his heart as it had always done in the past. Nor did the thought of how Jacob could have been his son. But there was a strange feeling in the pit of his stomach, taking his son's bride, but Jacob was not his son. For Jacob's mother had been his one and only love. His love had always been unrequited. He had hidden it to keep peace in the family. I know there's something wrong here. He had hidden it to keep the peace in the family. His love had always been unrequited. He had hidden it, comma. I'm going to put a comma there. I think it'll help. To keep the peace in the family. The pain of losing out to his cousin was only surpassed by watching them welcome Jacob into the world. They were so happy. After the christening, Jack had to flee. That's why he'd been in Europe for so many years. He had, and that needs to be a had because I don't like that it's... That is... I'm going to get rid of that too. Is why he'd been in Europe for so many years. It was better to remove himself from the situation. He had removed himself from the secular world, focusing solely on work. No, from the... I'm going to leave it. I'm not quite the word I want, but I can't think of another one. I'll think about it when I sleep. He'd removed himself from the secular world, focusing slowly on work, using it as a balm for his torn heart. What he felt for this terror sleeping on his shoulder was nothing like what he'd felt in his youth. Instead, she seemed to be someone who would be fun to run through the woods with and chase dolphins. He took the time to look at her social media link Uncle Joe had sent him. He took time to look at her social media link. That's what's missing. He took time to look at her social media link that he took the time to look at her social media link. Look at her at the I think if I put a comma in there, that would work. And then say Uncle Joe had sent it to him. It to him. There, that makes sense. He took the time to look at her social media link. Uncle Joe had sent it to him. The time had been so compressed, and he'd left. He hadn't had the time. The time had been so compressed. Comma. And he had left the intelligence gathering to Secretary Price. So he knew that's what's wrong. That's that, comma. So okay. The time had been so compressed, and he'd left the intelligence gathering to Secretary Price, so he knew he had to re-examine everything himself. Much better sentence structure. He took the time to look at her social media link. Uncle Joe had sent to him. That's it. He took the time to look at her social media link Uncle Joe had sent to him. The time had been so compressed, and he had left the intelligence gathering to Secretary Price, so he knew he had to re-examine everything himself. This wife could not be left to others, or he would not be able to keep her. She had a whole channel dedicated to fishing, and she had been doing it since she was small. He laughed. She was someone who chased dolphins. He laughed. She was someone who's chased dolphins. Who had. I need to read the letters that are actually there. His wife could not be left to others, or he would not be able to keep her. She had a whole channel dedicated to fishing, and she'd been doing it since she was small. He laughed. She was someone who had chased dolphins. He found it amusing that they really were so well matched. Her dark pencil skirt and jacket matched his. Traveling in a dress suit was a nice change from the pajamas he often saw in people of her age. He had simply torn out of the meeting once he finally uncovered Price's treachery. And so had nothing with him. Comma. That works. He'd been decisive. In truth, he'd not fired Price from the company, but she was fired from her position. He would control her future and not let her harm Sarah further. She had a contract with him for another 3 years, and she would fulfill it in Uganda. They had a project in the country, and they were in need of a secretary. Price would not be bothering either of them in the future. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. As the train was beginning to curve around the large mountain, the centrifugal force pressed her harder into him. He did not mind. She had truly fallen asleep and started to fall forward, sliding down his chest. He held her back by laying his arm across her, gripping her shoulder and cradling her against him. She did not wake, so he had succeeded in securing her. She was soft and warm. He remembered being hugged as a child. It was the same. He remembered being hugged as a child. It was the same sort of warmth and soft warmth. It was the same sort of soft warmth. Reread. She did not wake, so he had succeeded in securing her. She was soft and warm. He remembered being hugged as a child. I'm going to say this. I'm going to do it this way. Get rid of this. Yep. This is all. He remembered being hugged as a child. It was the same sort of soft warmth. I like that better. He did not want to let go of this. Now something in his chest began to ache. He rested his cheek on the top of her head, enjoying the fresh scent of her, and closed his eyes, letting himself Simply enjoy the soft weight of her in his arms. She was right. As they stopped in front of the small wood deck, there was no more than an overhang, one booth with a cracked glass window, but a surprising number of people departed. The sun had still not risen. It was at least a month after the equinox, and the light had grown long in the late months of the year. He shut his eyes again. She still slept, but had relaxed her grip, her backpack falling to the floor. He felt her chest and move. Oh. He felt her chest move. He was certain she was breathing. How could someone sleep so deeply in a place like this? How could someone sleep so deeply in a place like this, he wondered to himself. Moving. Okay. I did misspell it. He felt her chest moving. He was certain she was breathing. How could someone sleep so deeply in a place like this? He wondered to himself. Well, duh. Who else is he going to be wondering it to? Well, I'm going to leave it. He couldn't quite bend down and get the backpack and maintain her position, so he simply wound his foot in the handle and shut his eyes, resting his head on hers again. The train stopped suddenly, and he fell forward, waking him. I'm going to do this new paragraph. The train stopped suddenly as he fell forward, waking him just as suddenly. The backpack was still secured by his foot, but she seemed to be stirring. The windows still only reflected their untwined forms. This stop was even more primitive, a simple cement slab and no buildings, not even an overhang to protect someone from the rain. But at least 30 people exited, and a few were standing waiting under the one light post. Blah, blah, blah. Reread. The window still only reflected their entwined forms. The stop was even more primitive, a simple cement slab and no buildings, not even an overhang to protect someone from the rain. But at least 30 people exited, and a few were standing waiting under one light. Exited, exited period. A few people were standing, waiting under the one light post. That's fine, that works. She, of course, had been right. He had access to a helicopter, but it would be a foolish use of the resource. She had a point in her favor. He felt her moving against him before the train started, and then it lurched, and that seemed to finally wake her. She pushed away from him quickly and apologized. Then she smiled. He hadn't seen that before. She pulled up her backpack, dusting it off. Sorry about that. I guess last week caught up with me. Not a problem at all, and you don't snore. Glad to hear it. I wouldn't want to embarrass you. You were right. The last 2 stops are rather... Well, you were right. Do you want to sleep more? I believe these chairs tip back a bit. I do, but I have a bit of a cramp. She reached to rub her neck and then winced. Is it very painful? Oh no, it's my hand. She held up her fingers, and he noticed again the tape wrapped around them. You could rub my back and neck. Oh. That needs to be all one person. That's her still talking. Needs a quote mark. There we go. Oh, whoa. Why is it all tiny? That's weird. There. All right. That was weird. Somehow picked up tiny type. Oh no. It's my hand. She held up her fingers, and he noticed again the tape wrapped around them. You could rub my back and neck. She pivoted in her seat just a bit, so her back was angled towards him. He tried to accommodate and put out one arm, but it was at a bad angle. Why don't you sit in my lap? Oh, I don't think so. I don't mean anything by it. It's just that I can reach your back better. Well, I'm not certain you could withstand my weight. She poked her head up over the seats, and looked around. And we're not alone in this car. I promise I'm not planning to do anything inappropriate. She popped her head up again and looked around. All right. Sarah stood and pulled up her skirt past her knees and straddled just the ends of his knees. Pulled up her skirt mid-thigh. I'm going to say instead of past her knees, I'm going to say skirt. Skirt mid-thigh. Thigh. She mid-thigh, probably one, yep. All right, Sarah stood and pulled her skirt mid-thigh and straddled just the end of his knees. His thighs felt strong beneath her. You're not that heavy. My doctor begs to differ. Well, I don't find you unpleasant, and I don't find you heavy. I do work out in a gym regularly, and I like to hike. You do? Yes, I like being outdoors. How do you feel about it? Well, I would have said that I was an outdoors enthusiast, but my last experience was a bit rough. She wiggled her two working fingers at him. So is that how you hurt your hand? Among other things. I fell in the mud and slid down a mountain a little bit. My hip still hurts. I have a spiral sprain and a fracture. I'm going to get rid of spiral because I got rid of that earlier. I have a sprain and a fracture that I'm told will just take time to heal, and I lost my baby. His hand froze on her shoulders. I need to reread this. So is that how you hurt your hand? Among other things. I fell in the mud and slid down the mountain a little bit. My hip still hurts. I have a sprain and a fracture that I am told will just take time to heal, and I lost my baby. His hand froze on her shoulders. You did what? Jacob took me into the mountains for my birthday and then left me there as the sun was setting. I was in an evening gown and high heels and his wool jacket. No phone, no purse, no signal. Jacob did what? And that is why I'm forcing him to marry the woman he left me for. That is an apt punishment. He started making small circles on her shoulders again. I am sorry about the child. I'm not. I'm glad I don't have anything to tie myself to Jacob. That would have been not miserable. But yes, I was looking forward to being a mother. He felt a vibration under his hand and realized she was sobbing. Not that he'd ever done this before. But I don't know why we was there, that's so weird. But he had the urge and went with it, pulling her into his arms against his chest and simply held her there. She turned in his lap, I'm going to say lap, L-A-P, turned in his lap and clung to him, sobbing uncontrollably. This was the first time she'd cried since doing so on that exam table in the small clinic, when she had learned she'd lost the child. He simply stroked her back. He truly did not know what else to do. He remembered how devastated his mother was when she'd lost a child. He couldn't have been more than 5, but at least her husband had loved her. He felt her rubbing her hands on his chest, and he pushed her away. I'm sorry I got your shirt wet, and I've ruined your jacket. It's just clothing. He pushed the hair out of her face. So you okay now? She shook her head, and he could see her face contorting as she was trying to stop any further tears. It's okay to cry. I remember my mom was not as brave as you've been. I was just a child and I didn't totally understand, but I remember my mother cried for about a week, and she wouldn't come out of her room. Oh, wait, this is all him talking. I'm going to leave it alone. I was very sad. I was very scared. I thought I'd done something wrong. I was very mad at my little brother. Because they said it was because of my brother that Mom was so upset. I didn't understand it was the new baby that she had lost. I thought my oh, little's in the wrong place. Thought my little brother had done something to her. I beat him up because he'd hurt Mommy, which made it even worse. Grandpa was scolding us, making my parents more miserable. I kept protesting, saying I needed to punish him for hurting Mommy. I remember my brother had big wads of tissue in both nose holes, and I had one wad. I'd given him a black eye too. Jack felt her starting to shake under his hands again, and he realized she was laughing at him. Was this John that you beat up? Yes, he's only a year younger than I am, but he was as tall as I was. I see. Thank you. I needed to laugh. Do you mind if I just rest here a bit? You can rub my back. Jack noticed that they were being observed, but he didn't care, and he pulled her back against him. She curled her hands on his chest and tucked her head in. She didn't shake or tremble, and her breathing became more regular. She was a healthy girl, but not too heavy. He liked everything he felt about her. She was certainly not fat, but she was curvy, unlike Secretary Price and most of the women that threw themselves at him. Yes, this lovely soft thing in his lap. He had no objection to being kept by her. Oh, that sentence is weird. Yes, this lovely soft thing in his lap. He had no objection of being kept by her side for a lifetime. Oh, that works. Just need to read it. Had no objection of being kept by her side for a lifetime. Then a thought occurred to him, and that had actually something, I'm going to say, occurred to him, something, S-O-M-E-T, something that had not occurred to him for many, over 2 decades. And he shook his head. He could not ask the question, but now was desperate, he shook his head. He could not ask the question, but he was now desperate to know how long after a miscarriage one could try again. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. That's nice. Oh, we're at 99. I still have 131 pages to read. And it's 6 o'clock. Maybe we can read it through by midnight. Wouldn't that be nice? The station was modern and had 6 windows for ticket sales. He shook her a bit. It's time to wake up. We need to get off. She's far too groggy. The cabin was beginning to fill. You need to stand up. We need to leave. Do you have any other luggage with you? She blinked her eyes at him. Yes, in the bin, the blue one, in my backpack. That's all I have. Dark blue or light blue? Light blue. It should have my name on it and a large sticker of a monkey. Yes, that's the one. He took her hand and pulled her down the narrow aisle. She stumbled behind him. Where are we? Where we need to be, a large station. We'll be able to get a car or plane. Why not just take the train back? Is it urgent? This is all her talking. I just realized. I don't know why I did that. Why not just take the train back? Is it urgent? I'm in need of facilities and a meal. We can take both. We can take care of both of those and those, comma. Get rid of and. Okay, let me reread. Why not just take the train back? Is it urgent? I'm in need of the facilities and a meal. We can take care of both of those now that we're off the moving vehicle. She still stumbled a bit. I'm sorry, I think I need to stretch my hips. Or my hip, comma. Why is this acting like this? Oh. It needs to be an it and then hip. I need to stretch my hip. It still hurts a lot. He pulled her over to a bench and sat her down. He stood and watched the eyes on them. Oh, he stood and watched the eyes on them, as he put her backpack on himself. No time of day was safe from the criminal. She began to stretch her thigh, stretch in her tight skirt and tennis shoes. She pulled up the edge of her skirt just a bit so she could do some lunges. He heard the distinct pop and she cried out just a bit. Well, that seems to have fixed it. Is that something new? I noticed it last week. I've been told that once my fingers are healed, so should everything else be. So it really was quite a bad fall. There were a few falls along the mountain road. She held up the palm of her hand, showing him the little red marks where gravel had been removed. My knees and hip don't look much better. Oh. And I forgot the frostbite part. Oh, my knees and hip don't look much better. Oh, and I forgot about the frostbite part. My fingers and toes still ache. You got frostbite? Well, they fixed it. But I still have that tingling, painful numbness, and showers are a challenge. Jack felt an enormous rage well up in him again. All this happened on that night. Yes, and if it weren't for Luca, I probably would have died. Who's Luke? And why have I never heard of him? The lumberjack. Well, he's a driver of lumber, and now my driver, whenever I'm in town. He's promised to get his passport so he can come to the wedding. I have also invited the doctor and the assistant that saved me. I do owe them that much. I like to take them on a trip. They're quite fun. At least they tried to make me feel better. So there is a Lucas and a doctor. Luca, Billy, and Adam, driver, doctor, assistant. Lucas scooped me up out of the mud and kept me as warm as he could on the hour-long drive to the clinic. That's where Adam and Billy saved my toes and fingers and my life. There's a ski lodge at the top of the mountain. The clinic specializes in cold-related issues and broken bones, so it's actually the best clinic for me to have been taken to. I stayed with them for half a week, recovering. It was very bad then. Yes, it was very bad, but enough about my sad past. We are in beautiful wherever we are, and I'm hungry. She raised her eyebrows at him, and I am rather in need of the facilities. I think I can make it on my own now. You mind? All he could do was shake his head and pull her case behind him as she pushed forward towards the security guard. He discreetly pointed her in the right direction, and she promised to be back momentarily. He did not like having her out of his sight. After all, it had taken him over $10,000 and losing the lucrative contract to find her on a moving target. He did have a good men, and if Secretary Price had not been so careful in her accounting, he would have had less of a clue of where to go. It made him quite ill when he read the file. If he had taken time to investigate some of the oddities he'd experienced over the last decade, he would have uncovered her conspiracy much sooner. It had only taken an hour. I'm going to do this new paragraph. It had only taken an hour to gather the evidence that he read while flying over to the small city she'd been sent to, only to discover she'd left and boarded a train. But that was not the hard part. The hard part was convincing her he was sincere, now that he held her in his arms and had more than a fleeting conversation with her. She would do just fine. I'm going to say something about being a wife. Here. As a wife. As his wife. As his wife. She would do as his wife. She would do just fine. Oh, it can be dot, 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 dot. There. She would do just fine. He worried that she was taking far too long. Then again, he never waited for others. There was a large wave of people that came between him and the guard and the small door she disappeared into. Jack was surprised at the anxiety he was feeling. He felt a tug on her bag, and the guard yelled. The guard tried to indicate Jack should take his bag and put it on his front. Jack spoke to him in terrible French. He and the guard had a small conversation. Oh, no. I'm gonna get rid of that. In terrible French. The guard warned Jack he was less likely to have his bag sliced and stolen from if worn in the front like he'd seen front. Period. Front, comma. Like he'd seen so many women carrying their babies. Someone did put their hand on the case as was off of it. Someone did put their hand on the case, comma, as his was off of it. But he quickly retrieved it. So distracted he was, so distracted, comma, he was surprised when he looked up and she was staring back in his eyes. Ready? Do you need to? No, I can wait until the restaurant. I'm going to suggest a hotel. That way you can have a proper shower and change clothes and freshen up. It says that way you can have a proper shower and change your clothes and freshen up. Oh. Comma. Proper shower, change your clothes and freshen up. Probably needs, I don't know if it needs one there. Sure. Won't that be a waste? I say we got, get. Won't that be a waste? I say we get some food and push on. He was thinking how nice it would be to have a quick nap, but she was right. He was supposed to be, 2 hours ago, he was supposed to be in a meeting. He had explained that he'd lost his fiancée and needed to retrieve her. The men around the table had laughed at him and told him, around the table had laughed, comma, and told him he was being a good man, but warned him not to spoil her too much. He wasn't quite sure what that meant, but he would make sure not to lose track of her again. You hold on to the case. I'm going to make a call. Doodly-doo. They had to wait in a small cafe for an hour before his transportation arrived. They were alone. They were alone. He would have chosen a much different... Reread. They had to wait in a small cafe for an hour before his transportation arrived. If he were alone, he would have chosen a much different route, but he did not want her to be in jeopardy again. So made sure it was his men who came for them. They would take a small plane back south. As the train had already taken them through the Alps. Doodly-doo. Is this sort of travel normal for you? No, but I normally plan ahead and am much more efficient. Much more efficient. But these are special circumstances. Okay, reread. Is this sort of travel normal for you? No, I normally plan ahead and am much more efficient. But these are special circumstances. Are you comfortable? Well, I appreciate you retrieving me. You have made an effort. I'm not sure if you're going to lose a strike against you, though. How could you have someone like that next to you for so long and not have realized it? I too am disappointed in my ignorance on the subject. I'll review everyone around me and make sure I'm not being blinded to something else. Good, I'm glad you hear that. And she really... And you not, no, here, yeah. And I'm glad to hear it. And you really were not in the shower? No, but if I had been, it would have been with 6 men. As I told you, I'm trying to negotiate a deal which involves the government. So, phones were not allowed in the room. Even our little smartwatches had to stay behind. Really, you play those sorts of games? What do you mean? You take government contracts. I often have to work with them, especially with what we do. I was unaware that sports equipment manufacturing had a need for such high degree of security. That's not all we manufacture. Well, let's not discuss it now. I assume this is your plane, but I really don't want to know the details yet. I haven't signed an NDA. I wouldn't ask that of you. Well, I will ask that of you if you work for me. But not as my wife. So you're thinking of marrying me? Isn't that what you're here for? Isn't that why you're here? Oh, yes, but you hadn't quite given your opinion on that. I think we should give it a try. I mean, I've known of your existence for less than 72 hours. And I already know I like you. I'm impressed by your tenacity. Normally people refer to that as my pig-headedness. Well, you are rather decisive and independent. Is that a bad thing? Not at all. I find that appealing in other humans. Most of my friends would have some combination of that same characteristics. And you never found any of them interesting? He raised a brow. She raised a brow. She. I mean, as in a marriage partner? They're all men. So no. As much as I appreciate my time with them, I'm not interested. He watched her repress a smile. I have no opinion on the subject. Well, I have... pardon me. Reread. They're all men, so no. As much as I appreciate my time with them, I'm not interested. He watched her repress a smile. I have no opinion on the subject. Well, I have to admit I have not been looking. But as you have brought it to my doorstep, I will give my careful consideration and give you, my 80% of my attention. Just 80%. Just space. It would be a lie if I said full. I am in the middle of negotiations. I'm going to get rid of the... okay, I have let the legal team know that you'll be working with me, so when we land, you'll have a few things to read over. I'm taking you to my hotel room and allowing you to freshen up. Do I truly look that bad? No, surprisingly not very wrinkled. I need to freshen up. I've been in the same suit for at least 48 hours now, and I'm feeling a bit crusty. That's your age. I would be careful of comments like that. Why? Because it provokes me and makes me want to prove otherwise. Doodly-doot. Doodly-doot. He had thought he'd chosen a high-end hotel and was very comfortable with the thought of taking her in, but she was concerned that there were no shops in the lobby. His men had gone ahead, and he thought she was following, So he was surprised as she took his hand and dragged him towards the front counter. They were given quick directions, and she took his hand again, dragging him with her to the recommended high-end dress shop. She asked him to sit. He still held her bright, light blue luggage with the monkey on it, and 2 of the women behind the counter looked at him with an odd expression, whispering between them. They had managed to make him feel uncomfortable. He felt even more awkward when his bodyguard had clasped him by the shoulders and exclaimed, "You scared me when you disappeared. You know better than to run off from me." And then sat down next to him on the little couch, whispering in his ear. Larry had gone to school with him and started working for him after he'd spent 8 years in the Marines. They were too close, and he would need to explain their relationship to Sarah, because Larry often did not behave as one would expect of a bodyguard, and he rarely kept his opinions to himself. Sarah disappeared into the changing room. Sarah had, H-A-D, disappeared into the changing rooms with a smile, and two women loaded with garments. So when is the wedding? Asked Larry. We've not made a final decision. No, you haven't? She's willing to. You were the deciding fact. That doesn't make sense. Okay, ask Larry. So we're Larry, and this is Jack and Larry talking. So when is the wedding? Asked Larry. We've not made a final decision. No, you haven't. There. I think it's all him talking there. We've not made a final decision. No, you haven't. She's willing to. You're the deciding factor. Yes, that's correct. No, she said she needs to wait until she heals. Well, if she cleared the paperwork, would you marry her tomorrow? Oh, if I cleared the paperwork, would you marry her tomorrow? Oh, reread. No, we've not made a final decision. No, you haven't. She's willing to. You're the deciding factor. No, she said she needs to wait until she heals. Well, if I cleared the paperwork, would you marry her tomorrow? No, I don't think that would be fair to her. I have an excuse for being single the rest of my life. You have an obligation. I do not have a throne to inherit. I do not need to. I admit I like her, and I would be happy to have children with her. Then why the hesitation? She is literally the first female you've spent any effort on since Marla. I remember you in high school. You have the same sort of pithed frog look when you watch her. I'm 20 years her senior, and I don't know how. I'm worried she's just being impulsive. It's called being decisive. She has decided to give you a chance. You need to give yourself one. Can you lower your voice? They have given us enough odd looks already. Larry loudly whispered. Do you get any movement downstairs when you're talking with her? I am functional and not blind. So I really don't understand the problem. I suppose there's not one. It's just... By the way, why didn't you ever tell me that Secretary Price was a problem? You directly handed me a file. I thought you liked her. Why on earth would you think that? Because you kept her around for 10 years. Oh, you let her control. Oh, and... Oh, comma. And you let her control every aspect of your day and look at her. Oh, and took her to every event. Aspect of your day and took her to every event. Paid for her clothing, gave her jewelry. I did not give that woman jewelry. I gave her a clothing allowance. That is normal business practice. And she was my secretary in charge of my calendar, and I need to eat. You seem to tolerate her sharp tongue and complaints. I never heard her say... Control Z. You seem to tolerate her sharp tongue and complaints. I never heard her say a cross word. And she never complained to me. The complaints about her. That's what you read in the file. Were you really that unaware? Yes. I'm afraid I was. As long as it did not affect my day, I didn't really care. And this is going to be a learning opportunity for you. And this is going to be a learning opportunity for you, comma, because I'm quite sure because I'm quite sure the little miss in there will not be willing to be ignored. No, I'm quite certain she won't. Sure, I'll go with it. Doodly-doo. Sarah was as decisive as she had been when telling him no. escaping from his grasp and disappearing into the wilds of Italy. Within a half an hour, she had her arms full of bags and was leading the two men back to the hotel. You didn't want to buy anything for me. Jack was surprised. He was overlooked. Do you have that sort of hobby? Larry snorted at her question and pressed the correct floor in the elevator. What hobby? I assume you have suits in your room. I'm afraid. She ignored the question. Come on, but Larry smiled at her. S-M-I smiled at her and shook his head. No. And S-H shook his H-E head. No. Period. Okay. She ignored the question, but Larry smiled at her and shook his head. No. I assume you have suits in the room. I'm afraid I'm wearing my only one. I'd planned to shop wherever I landed. What I'm wearing needs to be retired. It looks very good on you, offered Larry. Jack gave him a scowl. Yes, thank you, but I've been wearing it for 3 days. No, 4. 3. It has all sort of blended together. Well, the style looks good on you, Jack said quickly. Come on, I need a hot shower. Maybe 2. Doodly-doo. Doodly-doo. Larry, will you be dining with us? No, he will not. He has his own room and needs to attend to some matters. Thank you, Larry. As well. Thank you, Larry, as well. Larry tipped his hat and disappeared down the hall before Jack pressed the room card into her hand. I would like to schedule a full-body massage before I sleep tonight. I'm still tied up in knots. Before I sleep tonight, I'm still tied up in knots. Do you want to have dinner before? Yes. He followed her into her room with her bag. I find it strange since my encounter with that extreme cold. Well, I've never been that cold before, and I didn't know the body could cramp so badly. I keep having these cramps across my back. If I just turn the wrong way, I'm hit. Have you seen anyone for that? No, of course not. In what time? I'll find you someone. There's to be a reason and a solution. I regularly see a sports medicine doctor and chiropractor in France. I don't know anyone locally, but I will make sure you're taken care of tonight. Well, I appreciate it. I feel the hours on the plane and train have affected my body a bit more than it usually does. May I ask you a question? Of course. Have you been told how long you have to wait? Jack chickened out. Wait until you can resume normal physical activity. Well, frankly, they want me to do as much exercise as I can. They want me to strengthen the ligaments and keep the joints moving properly. I have to be careful of my fingers. I'm not to re-injure them. I suppose as long as my skin is sealed, I can go back in the pool. She stared out the window for a moment. Needs to be 4 in there. F4. I'll check on something before I enter the water again. But I'm cleared to do pretty much anything. Though they did suggest I wait until my fingers were healed. That's true. I need to remember that. I'm never one that's very patient with the healing process. I often work through colds and then make it worse. I had been hospitalized twice with pneumonia simply because I was busy. I'll keep my eye on you then. I'll try not to let you get that carried away. You've never done that. I have done some rather foolish things that made my recovery slow. I am a bit active, and I've had more than my share of sports injuries. And I tend to just walk it off. Oh, you're one of those. So am I. Oh, you're one of those. Well, so am I. Oh, it needs a well in there. Well, so am I. We will limp off into the sunset together. I like the sound of that. He enjoyed the wide smile across her face as she stared out the window. Sheila really was quite lovely. Reread. I liked the sound of that. He enjoyed the wide smile across her face as she stared out the window. She really was quite a lovely thing, and the old fool that he was lucky to have her set to him. He would have to thank his Uncle Joe for the introductions, and thank his cousin Jacob for being an idiot. Doodly doot, doodly doot. He had not realized the rooms were attached until she flung the connecting door open as he was buttoning his pants. She, however, was fully dressed in a dark navy blue needs to be, ankle-length sheath dress and a short, elegant jacket that mimicked the one he'd been wearing when he found her on the train. Do you mind giving me a moment? What do you need help with? Your tie? What? Do you need help with your tie? No, I want to change my suit. Because I have one that would much better match yours. Well, don't let me stop you. Go on. Well, can I have some privacy? No, go on. This is part of the examining the goods. No, go on. This is part of examining the goods. She sat in a large plush chair in the room and waved her fingers at him. Go on, show me what you've got. I'm not used to that. To disrobing in front of others. Well, if we are to marry, you're going to have to get used to it. I'm not planning to leave the room every time you need to change your undershirt. You're not going to leave? No. You're not embarrassed? No, I've lost the capacity. I know, I've lost that capacity. I would like to see what I'm buying. You know, get a sample of the goods. The corner of his mouth kicked up. Really? Yes, absolutely. Her face was stone, but he saw a glint in her eyes, and her knee was bouncing. If he were in the boardroom or playing cards, he would call her out for bluffing. All right, I assume there will be a tit for tat. She crossed her arms over her chest, not until after the marriage. He burst out laughing, and when he finally recovered, he saw a wry, it needs to be a W, wrong wry smile on her face. Wait, you really not leaving? Oh, this is all her talking. Oh, no, it's not. It's him now. It's him. She crossed her arms over her chest, not until after marriage. He burst out laughing, and when he finally recovered, he saw a wry smile on her face. Wait, you're really not leaving? No, now get busy. I believe you have a meeting to get to. I've already signed all the papers. Jack started to unbutton his black vest and hung it haphazardly over the back of a chair. He stared in her eyes as he began to undo his belt, then his top button. She did not flinch, but stared back at him as he pulled down his zipper. You are late for a meeting. Chop chop. Last chance. He finally dropped his pants, kicking them towards the bed. So you kept up your legs. He swallowed hard. He was not used to being subjected to this sort of evaluation. He realized he needed to turn away from her, though the tails of his shirt should have disguised his mounting problem. He quickly pulled up and buttoned the pants of the dark blue suit that would complement what she was wearing. He had never thought of coordinating with a colleague or anyone before, but now he wanted to make sure he matched her elegance from here on out. He would have to hire someone to organize their wardrobes. He straightened his tie in the mirror and looked at the bottom of his coat. Reread. He straightened his tie in the mirror and pulled at the bottom of his coat. Come here and look at us in the mirror. She leapt from the chair and bounced to his side. The dress clung to her figure, and all her exuberant movements showcased her assets. He tugged at the bottom of his jacket a bit more, and scooped his hand around her waist to pull her next to him. Now see what a handsome couple we make. I like this. Yes, I like this a lot. Make it happen. You read my mind. I'm glad you pay attention to your image. I think half the time it's what sells them. I noticed you had the same haircut for quite some time. She explained after his eyebrows shut up. I read a lot of articles researching you. That is your hair. He bent down to allow her to run her fingers through it. All mine. If I cut it any shorter, it stands straight up. Oh, well, that makes sense. I want to see pictures. I'm sure you have some. Yes, I'm sure my mother will share them with you when you meet her. Oh, you're already taking me to meet the parent. Oh, you're already taking, not talk. That's talking, not taking. T-A-K. T-A-K. Taking. Oh, you're already taking me to meet the parents. Well, we are engaged now. You have seen my knees. We're deciding if we're engaged. Why not give at least, she shrugged and looked at the ceiling, a week. Make sure you can really stand me. Oh, make sure you can really stand. See, I need to put the can there because can's in the wrong spot. Burp. Make sure you can really stand me. And how do I find out if I can stand you? Wry. All she did was get a wry smile on her face. I'll explain that after the meeting. He took her hand and made sure he had his phone on him before dragging her from the room. He knocked briefly at Larry's door as they passed. Then he realized he had to slow his pace as the tapping of her shoes was a bit loud on the tile floors. Do you really want to wear those? Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. She was charming and comfortable in a room full of men in suits. He had introduced her as the missing fiancé, and they had congratulated on his catch. He found it interesting that she did not let the compliments drag on, but guided them to the table to start the feast and business. Twice the conversation began to stray, and she very skillfully redirected them, and she artfully dodged the greasy man who had given her a bit too much attention. Rather than being tired at the end of the meal, he was energized, comma, get rid of the N, with signatures in his hand. I thought that was going to take another week. Really, they don't. Really, comma, they won't regret it then. I mean, you won't? No, not at all. It was the cost of the port facilities that was the real sticking point. But you seem to have unstuck it with your, I don't know what that was. I feel like running through the woods right now. No thanks. All right, then what do you want to do? Hot shower, ice cream, bad movie, bed. Really, you don't want to run around? I'm going to let you in on a secret. I shouldn't be wearing heels today. I could bounce, comma, but only on my backside. My feet are done, but I don't want to stop you. What do you normally do after meetings like this? Collapse in a puddle. But you don't feel like that today. I truly feel like running up the side of a mountain right now. Well, don't let my feet stop you. Wait, I'll tell you what. Go tell your driver to follow us. I'll wait for you here. Oh, I'll wait for you right here. I'll call him. All right, well, call him. I see him waving at us from the street. I think he's confused. And what do I do next? Get down and I'll crawl on your back and you can carry me as you run to the hotel. It will be a bonding experience. I've seen it in movies before. Oh, I'm going to get rid of the before. I've seen it in movies. You think that's a good idea? You think that is a good idea? Well, I can't walk and you want to run. He watched her pull her dress up mid-thigh. She indicated with her head and eyes he should kneel before her. He still wanted to run, comma, but his heart was already racing. He put his back to her and squatted in front of her. His heart ran even faster as her arms went around his neck. Her arms wrapped, W-R-A-P-P-E, wrapped around his neck. His heart ran even faster as her arms wrapped around his neck. Then he thought his heart was going to explode as she wrapped one and then the other leg around him. He automatically grabbed her thighs so she would not slide down, and as he slide down as he stood. He was definitely going to be in trouble after this. He started off at a brisk walk. Okay, walk. And then she smacked him and yelled, "Giddy up." So he started to lope, and she was giggling as she bounced on his back. Her ankles had crossed in front of him. She was squeezing him tight, as he held on to her. His chest was aching, and he could no longer draw enough breath. Tight as he held on to him. Okay, enter. His chest was aching, and he could no longer draw enough breath to quench the pain, so he slowed to a fast walk. Oh, fast walk? No, just a some little fast. Breathing. Breathing. Breath. Breathing heavily. See, this is why we gotta read these things, because I've not seen that. That is hilarious. That would be so bad. He slowed. Okay. No longer draw enough breath to quench the pain, so he slowed to fast walk. Breathing heavily and his nostrils flaring, he stumbled as he focused on her bare feet in front of him. He had no idea what she had done. He had no idea what she had, that's what's missing, had done with her shoes. He felt her readjust a leg around his waist, and he went rigid for just a moment and then continued to walk. That was something he'd remembered from high school, and he'd had the same reaction at the time. It was like the last 20 years of his life. Simply collapsed. It was like the last 20 years of his life simply collapsed away. He honestly had no idea what he'd done. He only wanted to get her upstairs now, into a shower and a pint of ice cream to fulfill her wish. And then he stumbled a bit as he remembered she had wanted a massage, and he would help. Doodly doot, doodly doot. She had chosen his shower when he asked her. His shower, period. When he asked her why, she simply shrugged her shoulders and shut the bedroom door. He heard the shower running, and then there was a knock. He expected delivery of the ice cream and the steak she'd requested. He was not going to argue with her taste, but there was only a young man at his door, no bags or dishes. "Can I help you?" "I need to talk to you about my sister." "And your sister would be?" He tried to run through the names and photographs and the research. Oh, that is so creepy. The cat's trying to break into the house right now. It's really scary. He's taking her nails to the... I should record it because it's really creepy sounding. And the dogs, that's why the dogs bark, because they kind of got freaked out by it when she first did it. Okay, back to reading. "I need to talk to you about my sister." "And your sister would be?" He tried to run through the names and photographs in the research he'd done on Sarah. "Marie Price." "I could refer you to my legal team." "No, I came to talk to you." Jack tried to keep the man in the hallway and shut the door behind him, but he did not have his phone on him. Jack scanned the hall for the security cameras. He turned his body so the man's face was clear on the video. "Exactly what do you want to say?" She had abortions for you, and you cannot abandon her like this." "I'm sorry, what?" "She warmed your bed for 10 years. And you throw her aside for some young chit?" "One, I never touched her. Ever. And two, I have an unfortunate history and stack of evidence on her now. The chit you speak of as my fiancé. Your sister sent my fiancé to the wrong city. Purposefully, and then tried to make my fiancé believe that I was having an affair with her. None of this is acceptable. My sister told me that you have kept her all these years, and that's why she's always late or doesn't come home. I have not. I am sorry. You know she's been transferred to a different location? Oh, different location, comma, period. Her salary will not change, if that's your concern. My concern is you made her promises, and now you're breaking them. Jack was still in his dress shirt and trousers, but he changed into slippers. Since the man was seemingly calm, Jack started walking down the hall towards the end in Larry's room. Yes, I'm going to get rid of that. And in Larry's room, what exactly do you expect to get out of this conversation? I expect you to marry my sister. She's pregnant again, and it's not good for her to have to get rid of these children. You know it damages the body. Jack knocked the door he had paused in front of, containing his driver and lawyer and 2 of his bodyguards. Unfortunately, the driver had answered, and he was a rather unimposing older man. Martin, this young man needs to come inside and have a conversation. Is everyone dressed? The older man gave him an odd expression. A moment, sir. He shut the door, and there was a sound of scrambling on the other side. This time the imposing figure of his longtime friend and bodyguard Larry opened the door. I need to introduce you. That's fine. You two, you didn't say your name. Marvin Price. To Marvin Price, Secretary Price's brother. The sparkling green eyes of his legal counsel peeked around the burly man. He said that Secretary Price is pregnant by me, and I should be marrying her. The look of shock on both men's faces was priceless, but pun intended. He thought to himself as he suppressed the laughter. If only this man understood how ridiculous the statement was. Should we invite him in so we can have a full inside? Should we invite him inside so we can have a full conversation about this? Maybe look at the evidence? The hulking man at the door stepped to the side and invited the man in. Jack watched the panic rise in Marvin Price's face, and then there was a moment when his coloring went white, and he bolted down the hall. Change of plans. You're going to live next door to me. Sarah will be sleeping in my room tonight. You're moving kind of fast, boss. I'm marrying Sarah as soon as she'll let me. This mess needs to be cleaned up immediately. I'll call the men watching Secretary Price. She needs to get a full medical before she's sent anywhere. Larry. That fired off. Larry fired off. I will call the men watching Secretary Price. She needs to get a full medical before she's sent anywhere. You don't need any more surprises while trying to court your Sarah. The emerald eye slid down the hall. You need to be up front with your little goddess. I will also get Secretary Price's medical records. I think a psych eval may be in order too. I already have her financial records being researched. I thought I was being kind. I guess I was just being foolish. Larry snorted. Well, at least we all know it can't be your kid. Laughter erupted from the room behind Larry. Whatever. You need to go get the tapes pulled for the hallway. I hope the audio's good. I don't have my cell phone or my key card on me, so I cannot get back into the room. Well, that was dumb. I didn't want to invite the man into my room now, did I? She's in the shower. The giant held up his hand in supplication. The boss has it all figured out. No, I really don't. Anyways, I'm going to wait here. I can't get back in the room, so call someone for me. I don't want her to panic if I'm not in the room. You really think she will? I need to be in there, quickly. Go on. I have a card right here. Larry finally pulled one out of his pocket. We always have a spare so we can get in there quickly if we need to. Oh, psh. Well, come on. What are you going to do about the Price family? I'm going to do nothing. I have other business to attend to. Tom is going to see if there's anything else that her brother's been up to, and if there are any charges that can be pressed against Miss Price or her brother. Tom. Larry. It's not Tom, it's Larry. Larry is going to see if there's anything else her brother's been into, and if there are any charges that can be pressed against Miss Price or her brother. I'm a little concerned that she will not get on the plane. I've given her 48 hours to organize herself. But Larry's right. Oh, this should be Tom, and then that's Larry. Tom. Okay, Larry. But Larry is right. She needs a full physical exam. They both need closer observation. I understand, Jack. The door beeped and he secreted himself behind it. You are next door now. Understood, boss. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. The shower was still running and he breathed a sigh of relief. He knocked lightly. Do you need any help? Are you really offering? He felt heat radiating from his face. Well, you might have forgotten something. And She let out a laugh. No, I'm fine. Thank you for your concern. I hope you don't mind, but I'm used your razor. Whatever you need. It was not his preferred mode, but he'd gotten used to the lack of grooming many European women sported. Hairy legs and armpits no longer shocked him. Then he wondered if she was doing that for him. He felt heat rise from his body again, and his cheeks burned. He didn't need to look in the mirror to see he was red. How can he be this old and this? Well, he knew why. He was this shy and so affected by her. The water finally stopped, but there were other sounds coming from the bathroom. Sounds he could not identify. He placed his ear to the door. Maybe if you could hear more clearly. I think that needs a comma. He could understand what she was doing. Then, of course, the door opened, and he looked like a mime, his hands and ears pressed to an invisible surface. She was standing before him, cloaked in a lovely white robe, and her hair wound in a towel on top of her head. Your turn. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. The bathroom smelled magical, just like her hair had on the train. He quickly shut himself in the bathroom and swiped steam from the mirror. Not only were his ears, but he looked like he had been in a freezing windstorm. His cheeks were so crimson. I'm going to, instead of red again. Crimson, crimson. How absolutely embarrassing. Do you need any help in there? No, he croaked. She started laughing. He decided he wanted to be back in the room with her quickly, so made haste with his cleansing. She was no longer in her robe, but her hair was still wound on top of her head. She had a rather archaic-looking flannel nightgown covering her neck to wrist and to ankles, covering her from her neck to wrist to ankles. The thing hid all but the swell of her breast, tenting out around her. It was in such great contrast to the sheath dress of the day, which highlighted every curve, so he knew perfectly well what was hidden under there. Well, what? Oops. Was hidden under there. He, however, only had a bath towel, having not brought a robe with him. He felt his cheeks burning again, but he however, was only in a bath towel, having not brought a robe with him. He felt his cheeks burning again, but he would stand there and be a man. I'm not afraid of a little girl. In a flannel nightgown? He quickly pulled on a t-shirt. It stuck to him awkwardly as he tried to pull it on. She did not turn her head. He debated about going back to the bathroom, but gritted his teeth and pulled on the sweatpants up to his knees, just like he would in the gym. Left the towel on while he pulled them up the rest of the way. She never stopped toweling her hair, nor made eye contact with him through the mirror. His eyes bore holes through her while he dressed. There's a very large man named Jordan in my room. He said he was staying... I think that's with a G. Gordon. Let me make sure I got the right name. Gordon, not with a J. Gordon, right? Gordon. Gordon. Okay. Oh, Don, not Dan. Don as in D-O. Gordon. I'm going to have to check that. Let me put that on the list. Check the Gordons. There's not many of them, but there's one. That's why we keep our little cheat sheet. There's a very large man named Jordan in my room. He said he was staying there per your orders. So I will be staying here with you, or am I bunking with him? So, will I be staying in here with you, or am I bunking in with him? You will be in my bed tonight. He came to stand behind her and looked at her face in the mirror, taking the towel from her hands, continuing the process of drying her hair, mimicking her actions. There was a strange tightness in his chest at the thought of her bunking with anyone else. Do you use a blow dryer? There's one in the bathroom. No, it'll go all frizzy. Best simply let it dry. I just need a fresh, dry towel to go to bed with. You sit down and I'll dry your hair. Okay. His barber and masseuse had been the only people to touch his head since... Not science. Sense. S-C-I-E-N. No, sense. I can't spell sense. How do I spell sense? Have I not written it down? Because I always... It's S-I-N-C-E. Yes, thank you. I had to think. S-I-N-C-E. Sense. Science. His head science. No. Okay, reread. Okay, his barber and masseuse had been the only people to touch his head since he left home. He obeyed her. She used her damp towel to rub his hair. It was far too relaxing and intoxicating. Oh, here. He used her damp towel to rub his hair. It was far too relaxing, and the scent of her made... the scent of her on it. Scent of her on it made things within him begin to stir. He closed his eyes and leaned back into her hands. Leaned 80? Leaned? I don't think that's right. I'm going to make sure I don't think that's right. I know, kitties. Kitty cat's being disturbing at the door. Okay, I did it right. Back into her hands. He closed his eyes and leaned back into her hands. She started combing her fingers through his hair, dragging her nails across his scalp. Shivers ran down his spine. R-A. Nails across his scalp. Shivers ran down his spine. His head finally made contact with the soft body behind him. This really is your hair. That woke him up. Yes, I told you before. She traced the line of his hair on his forehead. but I've only seen this in movies. I didn't know people really had hairlines like this. You were born this way. Yes, I look an awful lot like my father. Oh, well, I look forward to meeting him now. We can go the day after tomorrow. All right. He stood up and put his hands on her shoulders. Can I meet your mother? Absolutely, but it's quite a long flight. I would suggest we video chat. Unfortunately, my father will want to meet you as well. Currently, I have him blocked. You blocked your father? Yes, I already told you about him. But you blocked your father. For my mental health and his physical. I see. Jack really did not see. He could never imagine to find his parents so soundly. We will meet my parents first. They're on a short plane. They are only a short plane and reread. I see. Jack really did not see. He could never imagine to find his parents so soundly. We will meet my parents first. They're only a short plane ride away. I thought they were back in the States. I understood your father developed on the West Coast. He did, but he's retired now. There's a cousin running that. Not you. No, I have larger fish to fry. I believe it's the same. My cousin's quite capable and likes the field. Are your parents still married? Yes, but the relationship changed dramatically after my father's family went under. Struggle will do that to you. This year has been a challenge for me. I already know I'm much less patient, and I think I'm being a little hard on you. I've never been anyone's rebound. Should I be worried? I've never had anyone to be rebound from. I wouldn't know. You didn't date in school? No, I went to an all-girls school. So for both high school, I went to an all-girls school for both high school and college. Not my choice. It had been my mother's alma mater, so she insisted I go. There really wasn't anyone to choose from. Most of the girls went to the boys' school down the block, but I found them tiresome, overbearing. They were all far too rich and entitled, and far too much there was far too much disposable income for being so young. Oh, reread. Most of the girls went to the boys' school down the block, but I found them tiresome and overbearing. They were all far too rich and entitled, and they had far too much disposable income for being so young. I witnessed my roommate in high school during my sophomore year grow increasingly thin, and her skin became pockmarked and sallow. Only after she'd been taken home by her parents did I understand what I had been witnessing. Come on. And what those odd smells were. She didn't die, but I remember one night she had broken a tooth. And she didn't react to it. She just kept fidgeting with the coffee cup as she always did, staring into space. I never wanted to go to a party ever again. She always would try to drag me with her. She rarely studied in her freshman year. And she never did in her sophomore year. She would come home, reread. I never wanted to go to a party ever again. She would always try to drag me with her. She rarely studied in her freshman year, and she never did in her sophomore year. She would come in at all hours of the night smelling odd. It was very easy for me not to have dated. It was very easy for me not to have dated. Not just because the selection was poor, nor to my taste, but because I had simply lost interest in anybody who was even remotely connected or attracted. Let me reread that. Not just because the selection was poor or not to my taste, but because I had simply lost interest in anybody who was even remotely connected or attached to a party lifestyle. That's what's wrong. That's why I don't care to do business with people who drink for honor. That's a fool's errand and simply an excuse to overindulge. Don't get me wrong, I have drunk an entire bottle of wine by myself before. I just do it in the privacy of my own home, where the consequences of my indulgence are minimized. Do you need a drink now? No, I need that promised massage. He dropped his hands from her shoulders. He had enjoyed the solidness of them. She walked to his side of the bed. Well, she wouldn't know any better, and pulled back the blanket and lay down on her stomach. I should have grabbed the bottle of oil in the bathroom. Could you be so kind? Not could, would. W. Would you be so kind? Jack realized his hand was trembling as he reached for the bottle. It smelled of her. He gripped the bottom of her nightgown and started to pull up. What are you doing? I was going to give you a massage. The best lubricant is fabric, and there's plenty of it in my nightgown. Get working. Jack swallowed hard, not sure what exactly he was to do with the oil in his hands. If you could start at my shoulders and base of my neck, that would be lovely. What? Rubbing in circles like you did on the train. You had a nice technique. He hesitated, trying to calm his shaking hands. When he still hadn't touched her, she rolled slightly on her hip to look up at him. He was still standing there with a bottle of oil in his hand. Save the oil for my feet and legs. Or don't. Fabric works just fine on bits and pieces, too. He still stood there dumbly. Put the oil on the side table and sit next to me on the edge of the bed. And use your hands to rub my neck. He nodded and started to move towards. Where am I? Oh. Save the oil for my feet and legs, or don't. Fabric works just fine on bits and pieces, too. He still stood there dumbly. Put the oil on the side table and sit next to me on the edge of the bed and use your hands to rub my neck. He nodded and started to move towards the bed once he deposited the oil on the side table. She finally laid on her stomach again, but there was no sinking of the bed next to her. She waited a bit. She decided to count to 100. She might be being too impatient and impulsive, but she really did like what he'd done for her on the train. Not just the shoulder massage, but when he held her and rubbed her back. It was just definitely something that she would want for the rest of her life, to be touched and held and cared for that way. She remembered her mother would do that. Well, she did do that, but she saw so little of her. So, so little of her. Mother was less prone to that sort of affection, and certainly would never massage her back. Do you often get massages? She rolled on her hip again, and he was still standing there, but now he was empty-handed. Would you prefer me sitting in your lap again? He nodded. I can give the bed a try. She rolled face down again, and finally there was a sinking of the bed next to her. His strong fingers wrapped themselves around her shoulders. He started with small circles, running his thumbs up on either side of her spine. She let out an involuntary moan, and he stopped, touching her. That was a good sound. Sorry, I didn't know. I thought I'd hurt you. I'm going to let out a few more noises. If you're ever rough, I'll let you know that I'm going to let out a few more noises. If you are ever too rough, I'll let you know that as well. Unless I yell stop, keep going. He placed his hands on her shoulder blades and started making small circles along the edges of the bone, then pressed and pulled on either side of the vertebra all the way down to her waist. She moaned and groaned a few times, and he swallowed hard at each note she sang. He did not feel bold enough to go beyond her belt line, though that would be the natural progression. He was not quite prepared to be quite that intimate. He made small circles with his thumbs back up towards her skull. He spent time running his fingers around her ears and began pressing her skull, running his fingers into her hair. He paused for a moment. Did you hit your head? Why? Do you suspect I'm a bit too forward with you, so I must have brain damage? No, I simply don't want to hurt you if you have bruised there. I'm not sure what you hit when you slid down the mountain path. Oh, I'm not sure what you hit when you slid down your mountain path. No, I managed to protect that. He made a small noise in his throat, and then he started in on her scalp again. This made her moan. She never apologized again, and never stopped moaning. He worked on her shoulders and then pulled out her left arm. He decided he could touch that. He worked small circles with his thumb into her muscles. Wish I'd quite a few. I need your recorder. Sorry, everybody. There, that's better. He worked small circles with his thumbs into her muscles, which she had quite a few under that soft exterior. Her sounds crescendoed as he hit her forearm and then into her long, slender fingers. Can I use oil on this? Yes, of course. That would be good. He tried to pour it out. Yes, that's right, pour it out. Just a drop. But unfortunately, it was much faster than he'd expected. And it made large dark spots in his thigh in the bed. But she really liked what he did to her hand. Small circles, pinches, and pulls. Her calls crescendo again. Crescendo. Edie. How do you spell crescendoed? In the past tense. Crescendoed. Crescendo. Her calls crescendoed. I gotta look this word up since it doesn't like what I got. My darlings, come on inside. Crescendoed. It's the right word. It's just that the computer doesn't like it. It's correct. He turned her palm up and counted the little red spots. Some were still open. After anger flashed through him again at the thought of what Jacob had put her through, the bastard. Sarah, do you want me to massage the other arm? A muffled yes, of course. But don't do the hand. I'm afraid of my broken little bones cannot endure such complete and fabulous rub. Such a complete and fabulous rub. Let me reread that. A muffled yes, of course. But don't do the hand. I'm afraid my broken little bones cannot endure such a complete and fabulous rub. You understand, you are hired now. I'm hired. Yes, of course. You must have done this often. You're quite skilled. No, but I've had massages quite often. Have you ever had a man touch you like this before? She muffled. Still muffled. Not unless I paid them. I'm sorry, what? You're the first man who I've not paid to touch me. Really? Yes, of course. Anytime you want to touch me and rub on me, please do so. I'm quite certain I'll be open to it, and you're quite skilled. Jack had been given offers like that in the past, but, well, not like that. But women had offered themselves to him, and he'd never before ever been tempted by them. Why this little girl's invitation? And why, at the thought of another man touching her hand, touching even her hand made him crazy and want to... Was this jealousy? Was it just because Grandpa approved? Oh no, Uncle Joe. Joe approved? Then a darker thought passed through his mind. Was it because she had been Jacob's intended? And somehow this was him recapturing. No, he knew this was a strange old fool, but he could not be that twisted. She was bright and brilliant in that meeting earlier today. She was beautiful and very straightforward. And maybe knowing that she truly was not after his money. Well, her mother might be, and her father, but she was not. That put him on an equal footing. Few women in this world had that with him, and that did not appeal. Oh, and that did appeal to him. I should reread that. That put him on equal footing. Oh, that put them on equal footing. Few women in this world had that with him, and that did appeal to him. It would. Oh, he would, not it. He would beat the snot out of Jacob at some point. How dare he do that to her? How dare he do it to anyone? He'd been rubbing at her the whole time he was thinking, and only as she squirmed under his hand and giggled did his thought snap back to what he was doing. Did I hurt you? No, that certainly didn't hurt. You know what a giggle is, right? He stopped moving his hands at her noise, and then he realized where they were, settled. His long fingers were stretched out, his palms digging into her fleshy backside. How could he have been playing with that and not been paying attention? He truly was broken. I do have to say that it actually feels quite good. You don't have to stop. Well, now he was just embarrassed, but he couldn't deny the ladies, so he again started to knead the dough, but he did not linger. He moved down her thighs and then went back up around her sides of her hips. Oh, that is sore. But it feels good, what you're doing. Feels good, what you're doing there. She unexpectedly rolled towards him, putting her back against him. Can you work on this? She traced her finger from mid-thigh to her waist. Of course. He had a therapist work this for him in the past. They had put a hand on his hip and the other on the front of his knee and stretched it back. Then the hand went under the knee and pulled it up to his chest. He thought that might feel good to her, so he did so. He was surprised at the heat that radiated through her nightgown as his fingers were dangerously close to her center. She moaned and yelped once as he stretched her back. He only slowed at the yelp, but continued to pull, and then slid his hand behind her knee and pulled it back up to her chest. Oh. My, that feels good. I need you to do that. Oh, I need to do that to you so you can understand. Do that again. Jack continued to manipulate her. He straightened her leg and then put his hand under the ball of her foot and pulled it up, giving her a long, hard hamstring stretch. She again moaned and whined. Oh, that feels really good. Well, it feels good. Well, it felt good to him as well. However, he was having an inappropriate reaction to the patient. He covered her legs with a quilt and started to knead at her waist, at her hip and waist, and her hip, waist, and backside. He slid one hand onto her stomach, which braced her, while he pressed hard into her lower back. She moaned again, and he knew what She moaned again, and he knew what he was doing felt good. He was enjoying it too, but his body was cramping and tiring at the weird angle. I can continue, but I would like to move. All right. She did not expect him to slide in behind her. He pulled her along his form, tucking her up into the folds of his knees and hips, and pushed his knee up into hers, stretching the leg like he had earlier. Well, that feels good. His right hand had spread across her stomach, and his left one under her head. He continued to use his legs to play with hers. He ignored the fact that he was pressing himself and his arousal into her backside. This would be the first of many times this would happen, he was certain. Jack? Yes? I like what you're doing. I like what I'm doing, too. He heard her breathing coming a bit faster and much heavier. She gripped his wrist and pulled it up. Can you massage these? She pulled his hands over her ample breast, and his fingers seemed to understand what to do, cupping and kneading. I will do my best. She placed her hand over his and began to run up his forearm all the way to his shoulder. She had strong fingers, and he looked forward to her returning the massage to him. She traced his arm for a while, then surprised him, reaching her hand down and rubbing and back, rubbing at what she could. I should return the favor. This was the first breast he ever had gotten to touch that he wanted to, and he truly wanted to. He wanted to see them, but he kept kicking that thought back in his head. This was definitely a first. Good. This was definitely a first. Oh, here, I'm going to do this. This was definitely a first good date, or would it be considered a second? Was the first on the train when he had held her? Yes. This was definitely a good second date. Whatever concerns they might have, they could work through. He didn't need to wait a week, a month, 6 months to know she was right. Sarah? Yes, Jack. Why don't we get married tomorrow? I'm sorry. Well, if it can't be done paperwork-wise tomorrow, then as soon as we can legally. I'm sure there's a process here. Did you say you wanted to marry me tomorrow? Sarah, do you need more time? Is it just because I let you touch my boob? Jack laughed. No, I had already decided I like you, and I like that you're No, I had already decided I like you, and I like that we are on equal footing. That's what was wrong there. I like you and that we are on equal footing, and I like your bluntness of your conditions. And your bluntness and your conditions. Here. Do you have any objections to marry me? Here, I'm going to do this. Period. I like you. I like that we are on equal footing. I like your bluntness and your conditions. Do you have any objections to marry me? No. Well, she moved her hand from his bicep and landed it on his hip, sliding it between them. He let out a surprised gasp. No, I have no objections at all. You seem to put up with my... Oh, you seem to put up with me. And my humor. You seem to have put up with my... You seem to put up with me. And my humor. Me, comma. Period. Come on, okay, let me read this. Why is humor... Is it spelled wrong? Oh, it is. Sorry, everybody. Okay, reread. No, well, she moved her hand from his bicep and landed it on his hip, sliding it between them. He let out a surprised gasp. No, I have no objections at all. You seem to put up with me and my humor. Well, I'll tell you, I would marry you tomorrow if that is important to you. I would say we should do it I will marry you tomorrow if that's important to you. I would say we should be engaged for at least 6 months. We should be engaged. For at least 6 months, she cleared her throat, and I don't mind living with you as a married couple while we're engaged. Jack thought for a moment. No, I don't want to wait 6 months. I don't want to have any speculation, and I don't want the uncertainty of you leaving me. Well, assuming you don't leave me on the side of a mountain to run off to another woman, I would never leave you. Yes, Jacob has a lot to answer for. There's another option, Jack. Yes, and what does your nimble mind propose? You are still a citizen, aren't you? Yes, and I just work here for decades. Well then, I do have a venue that is already set up for the end of the month. I'm sorry? She turned slightly in his arms so she could meet his gaze. Why not crash a wedding? Our family should be there. She bit her lip. I mean, I can still invite mine. Oh no, that should be reinvite. We had not sent out our invitations yet, as I was planning to marry Jacob, and I wasn't planning to marry Jacob until January, but we could, and your family will already be there. Oh wait, I already said that. I'm going to get rid of that. I don't know why I repeated my information twice in one paragraph. She turned slightly in his arms so she could meet his gaze. Why not crash a wedding? Our family should be there. She bit her lip. I mean, I could reinvite mine. We had not sent out our invitations yet, as I was planning to marry Jacob, and I was not. I'm going to change that to was not. Reread. She bit her lip. I mean, I can still reinvite mine. We had not sent out our invitations yet, as I was not planning to marry Jacob until January. You think that's a good idea? I think it's a beautiful idea, a double wedding. Jack had mixed emotions flit across his face. She was looking hopefully at him. Are you doing this just out of spite or revenge? No, economy. I'm very wealthy, but I don't like to spend money unnecessarily. I want to go wedding dress shopping tomorrow, as quickly as possible. Let's sleep on it. Jack swallowed hard. Sarah traced her finger over his Adam's apple. And in the morning, we'll make plans. We will make plans and call Grandpa Joe. I guess I should start calling him Uncle Joe. Yes, maybe just Joe. All right, just Joe and my just Jack. Do you feel you can wait until the end of the month? I would wait longer if it was required, but I would prefer to begin our life together. Oh, well, I'm not sure I'm capable of that yet. You should also make an appointment for me in the morning with an OBGYN. It's not a question I had asked the doctor at the time. I had no prospects. He saw her face blush as she bit her lip. I want you to understand my one time with Jacob was unintentional, and he certainly had no intention of being me. And he certainly had no intention of it being me. I need to reread that. It was not a question I had asked the doctor at the time. I had no prospects. He saw her face blush as she bit her lip. I want you to understand, my one time with Jacob was unintentional, and he certainly had no intention of it being me. What do you mean? He called out that woman's name at a critical moment. He had been drunk-ish and very amorous, and we had been getting along, but apparently he'd simply mistaken me for someone else. He'd simply mistaken me for someone else. Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. Yes, well, I felt a bit like I'd been taken advantage of him, seeing as how he was drunk. And you know my rule about not drinking for honor. Well, he never agreed with that rule. You indicated you thought it was an odd thing. Do you have a problem with it? No, I think you're quite right, especially as a woman, to not submit to the tradition. I will admit I have felt pressure over the years, but because of the schemes of so many, I have been cautious. I often refrain, but that's why I have those. Two big men. Those two big men next door. Why is it wrong? Those two big men next door. Those two big men next door. No. I'm going to leave it like it is. It would be quite hard to get all three of us compromised, so I can be taken advantage of. I want to apologize to you once again. He stroked her cheek. Oh, that's all one person talking. Sorry. He stroked her cheek. I really had not realized how delicious she was, and I need to tell you something else. Her brother came to me this evening while you were in the shower. He did what? That's why I moved the two men next door. He is claiming she's pregnant with my child. Sarah's face lost its color. It would be quite impossible for her to be pregnant with my child. He made many other claims. I'm not going to tell you now because I don't want you to be shocked. I'm going to tell you now because I don't want you to be shocked in the future. He claimed she had a few terminations for my sake, because of me. Again, impossible that I was the cause. But I want you to be aware of the charge. My legal team's investigating. She has not done anything illegal enough to be prosecuted and serve any time, but she certainly has been unethical. And the child? They're getting her medical records and doing further research. I want you to know she was fired from the position as secretary, but she has a contract for another 3 years, so I was sending her to an office in Uganda that required a secretary. She should be gone by 9 tomorrow morning. That was the agreement, but her brother came to me this evening, and his accusations are rather explosive. I want to address them, and I'm exploring further actions. I will send her to Uganda, eventually. Then eventually. I don't want her in any position to disturb our lives. She was very clever in her trying to separate us already, and that's why I'm being, as you had been, as open and straightforward as possible. I don't want you to be surprised. Well, I'm already surprised. Had you really no clue? I'm afraid I was very clueless. She was very efficient at her job and kept me sufficiently fed and cared for, but never acted inappropriately towards me. Well, I must have overlooked. I did not care for female attention and never got it from anyone. So she must have been. Yes, I believe she was. Well, Larry already had a file, and it only took an hour to compile a rather devastating report on her behavior in the company over the last decade. A decade? Do you feel sorry for her? I feel sorry that she believed there was ever a chance between the two of us. I've never been attracted to anyone or tempted, and I certainly had no feelings, or romantic or otherwise, for Secretary Price. What about these terminations you just mentioned? I'm getting her records subpoenaed. Well, gathered. It was just an accusation he threw out there. But you need to verify what her brother is talking about. What she thinks she did something in your name and got herself in trouble. What do you mean? Well, she took very good care of you and solved your problems. What if she solved a problem you were unaware of, and then she found herself in a condition? Technically, she would have had the termination for you, because she also knew that you were dependent on her as a secretary, allowing her certain liberties. You mean you think she sweetened the deal? I think that's a possibility. That thought had never crossed my mind. Well, I have certainly been told more than once how much more efficient the signing of a contract or formalizing a deal could be if I just, showed a little appreciation. I can knock their teeth in. Don't worry, I often find a way to make them suffer for their lechery. Can I make one other suggestion? If you do take her in for an exam, make sure it's your own doctor, not someone she could have bribed. You think she'd do that sort of thing? I'm certain she already has. How can you be so confident? All right, I will make sure. Make sure they look at another layer of her contacts. And that is where you might find the adjudication you're looking for. Sarah, have I told you yet? That I find your vocabulary arousing. No, and no one has ever said that to me. It's quite weird. He slid his hand up her rib cage and gripped her other breast. Sarah, this is the first time I've touched you. Touched your other boob. I want your firsts. You're going to have all of mine. He slid his hands up her ribcage and gripped her other breasts. Sarah, this is the first time I've touched your other boob. I want your firsts. You're going to have all of mine. Oh, that's kind of sweet. Bloop, bloop. Sarah felt her body go rigid at the moment she accepted what he was telling her. He truly had never. Jack, are you a virgin? He pinched the hardened peak of her nipple under the cloth. She gasped. Yes, I've never been kissed by anyone I loved. I have been kissed, but that was merely because I was being attacked. Well, I'm not much better. We can figure this out between us. So it doesn't bother you that I'm inexperienced? No, I quite like it. I am, other than my brief encounter, and it was brief, inexperienced as well, possibly more so. No one's ever gotten close enough to kiss me. I'm afraid I'm a bit fierce. You didn't kiss Jacob, his hand still on her breast. I was kissed by him at that night. I mean a proper kiss, you know, with tongues and everything. I did think it was pleasant, but I had nothing to compare it to. Jack was surprised by the growl that came from deep within him, even more surprised when he pressed his mouth to hers. He felt split in two, like he was watching another self, devouring her mouth, pressing his body on top of hers. Okay, I lost track of where I was reading. He felt split in two, like he was watching another self devouring her mouth, pressing his body on top of hers, rubbing her soft parts. There was still some voice talking in his head, some logic, but his body was not listening. She certainly seemed to not mind responding to him, wrapping herself around him, allowing her hands to explore. The knock at the door interrupted them. He pulled his head away, and they were both breathing heavily. Her lips were red and swollen, and he returned to the feasting on them, ignoring the second knock. At the third knock, she pushed at his shoulders. It must be urgent. He tried to reach down to her mouth, but she held him away. Go see who it is. He was far too hungry to have any capacity for a civil conversation with those who had interrupted him. Jack found it difficult to untangle himself from her. He certainly did not want to, and he did not care who saw him in this state. I'm going to say this instead of his. It might let them have an understanding of how rude it was for them to interrupt him. Larry's dark brown eyes narrowed at the man and repressed a smile. Repressing a smile. But then his face went serious. Sir, he's been spotted in the hotel again. And why are you telling me? I'm safely locked in this room. Well, he's not alone, and there is a reporter who wants to ask you some questions regarding the termination of Secretary Price. Well, you keep them in the lobby and call security, maybe the police. I have already told Sarah about this. Jack waved his fingers in the air. Complication. You deal with him. What exactly do you do? What exactly? Deal with him. What exactly you want? Do you want? That's it. Sorry. Want to do. Tell the reporter Secretary Price is under investigation. Get the number and promise it. Get their numbers and promises. Reread. What exactly you want to do? Tell the reporter Secretary Price is under investigation. Get the number and promise them. Get their numbers and promise them an exclusive if they hold off the report for a week. Who is with the brother? 3 young men about the same age as the brother. Lots of tattoos. Well, the brother will only do a paternity test. Oh, tell the brother I will only do a paternity test of all the people with him tonight. Have one too. They have to go to the hospital tonight to get the samples. You manage to get photos and fingerprints. If they refuse, then offer them $10,000 apiece for their time. Have her brother sign a consent form for release of medical records, his and his sister's. Get the men with him too. Larry's dark eyes flashed. Keep it in the file. I want the siblings. Oh wait, keep it on file. Get rid of this quote mark. I want the siblings' medical records tomorrow, and not just a year's worth. I want to know what happened when the woman was in grade school. Side note, I want to make sure the OBGYN we get is not on Price's payroll. Find me someone for tomorrow. Sarah needs to see someone. Is she okay? That's why we're seeing the doctor. I'll get right on that. I'm sorry for disturbing you, but take it easy on the girl. Larry reached out and smacked Jack on the hip and laughed. Jack jumped back. I don't want to see you until the sun is up. Jack made sure the door was secure, even sliding that little... Oh, I think that's somebody else. This is a new thing. I don't want to see you until the sun's up. Oh, I can do it. This, and then end, and then there. Jack jumped back. I don't want to see you until the sun's up. Jack made sure the door was secure, even sliding that little metal piece in the slot, comma. Though he was quite certain it would do nothing. What's wrong? And why do you look so cross? Secretary Price's brother is back, and there's the reporter asking about her termination. I believe there's a bit more afoot. I think it will not be as simple or straightforward as I thought. I see. And your plans are? My plans are to marry you as soon as I can. We can have the wedding with all the family there, but we don't need them to get this license, and get officially, legally married. The audience in silk is for ceremony. I can hold a wedding for you at the end of every month if you like. No, I find them quite wasteful things. You know how big that industry is. I wish people would spend their money on a house rather than a gown worth the price of a new car. Keep that in mind when you're shopping with me tomorrow. The price tag is not what makes the dress beautiful. It's who's wearing it. She raised a brow. He really liked this woman. He pulled off his t-shirt. He was pleased at her small gasp. He decided to leave his sweatpants on, though his arousal was quite obvious, even in the loose folds of the fabric. I would like to continue where we left off. Is that possible? She raised her hands out to him, and he settled into the cradle of her arms and thighs, and kissed her neck, tasting her as he went. She began to emit small noises that triggered something in him, and he ground down against her, causing him to emit more noises. She clung to him, her hands wrapping around him, pulling him closer to her. She seemed desperate to have all of him. Another urgent knocking at the door. This time the knocking did not stop. Jack growled into her neck, and he was in the middle of sliding his teeth as he was rewrite. Another urgent knocking at the door. This time the knocking did not stop. Jack growled into her neck as he was chewing Growled into her neck as he was in the middle of sliding his teeth over her collarbone and nibbling at its edges. This time, when he pushed off her, his member protested, jerking in its willfulness. Jack opened the door without checking. Yes. He was surprised to see Emilio's bright green eyes. So, he looked below Jack's belt line. I'm sorry to have disturbed you. To interrupted your introductions. Larry told me you were just getting to know one another. Please don't be rash. I won't be rash. Out with it, Emilio. Out with it, comma, Emilio. Esquire. Oh, Emilio S. Smith, Esquire. What is so important that you interrupted my evening again? It seems she did have some procedures done. It shouldn't have anything to do with me. Well, I didn't say they did. There's a problem, though. Yes. Mind you, it's not been clarified. Just out with it. It seems there's a child. A child? Yes, she has refused to allow it. I'm working on a court order to force her hand and allow us to officially test for paternity. Anyways, this will take a bit more time, and you're certain, Jack. Jack tilted his head and looked into Emilio's emerald eyes. You have known me for, well, nearly my whole life. Would there be a chance? Emilio narrowed his emerald eyes on Jack's face. No, I don't think there would be a chance. I don't think there would ever be a chance. What was different about her? What was different about Sarah? What was different about Sarah? Why have you blossomed? Emilio rolled his lips in surprise. Emilio rolled his lips to suppress a laugh again, glancing down at the dancing member. And why are you still as excited when talking to me? You are more like an annoying fly at this moment. I really want to get back to her. Oh, and figure out how we can obtain a proper marriage license. To make it legal. I'd like to do it tomorrow, but I want it done as soon as possible. I'm sorry, what? Oh, yes, we're going to crash my cousin's wedding at the end of the month. Jacobs, all I have to do is show up with my bride, and her family needs to be invited. You mean you're going to take over the wedding? It means we're going to have a double wedding. Sarah doesn't like the thought of wasting money, so she's a miser. Yes, she's just my flavor. All right, Jack, I don't want to hear. Well, maybe later you can tell me some things, but I don't want to hear about it now or see any more. I'm going to be scared. No, I'm already scared. I'm already scared. Scared. I need to go. I need to figure out if they have a good wash for my eyes. Very funny, and I'll see you at some point tomorrow. You can call me. Just take care of everything, unless they're actually in the room about to do something. I don't want to know about it. Understood? Now, go get her, Tiger. Jack slammed the door in the man's face. Doodly-doot, doodly-doot. Oh my gosh. Jack started speaking before returning to her. He pulled up a chair rather than sliding in behind her, like he was desperate to do. Come on. I'm not sure if you heard the latest. She made a noise but did not speak. I've told my legal counsel to look into the marriage license, but there's a further complication. Apparently, there is an older child that she now is claiming to be mine. Sarah did not turn, and her shoulders were shaking. I'm sorry, Sarah. I really have never touched a woman before. Please don't cry. I will prove my innocence. I'm not crying. I'm laughing. I actually had the same problem once. What? Yes, a man came with a child and claimed it was mine. I thought it was quite original. I did do a paternity test with the child, though, just to prove that it wasn't mine, to the board members and business partners that had witnessed the farce. I appreciate you being honest with me, but this certainly needs to be settled before. Before? I think it would be best before. Now climb back in here and keep me warm. You know, I told you my fingers and toes still ache, and I get cold a little too easily these days. Jack's faced this dilemma. Jack rarely faced this dilemma. Well, he never faced this dilemma before. How does one sleep next to the thing that's causing the condition? He gritted his teeth as she rolled on her side, and he curled up behind her, pressing himself firmly into her backside, finding little relief. But then she snuggled up against him, rubbing across his condition. It was a pleasant torture. He pushed her still damp hair back off her face and tucked her head under his chin. He struggled to pull the comforter over them and realized she had already fallen asleep, her breathing steady and regular. At least she was not afraid of him. Twice she had fallen asleep in his arms. He had a moment of concern that they moved too fast. But this was an arrangement by the family. In the past, they would have met on the wedding day and then would have been expected to be intimate that night. From that perspective, they were taking things slow. She shifted again, and an involuntary groan emerged from him. Yes, the first thing he would do was find a doctor. Doodly-doo, doodly-doo. I need to take a quick break. Boom, boom, boom. Humans, I will be back. Oh, my hair's all falling down. I look lovely. All right, I'll see you in a little bit, humans, for part 3.